Welcome to the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast with your host, hailing from Kokona, Wisconsin, riding a CST Tires SSI Decals traveling back Yamaha YFC 450R, four-time ATV motocross national champion, number 25, Cody Gibson.
What's up, everybody? We're back. I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Welcome to episode 70 of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, CST Tires, available for purchase and in stock today at shop.csttires.com. We have part 2 of our epic conversation with Mike Walsh on deck for you tonight. As I stated at the conclusion of part 1, you simply cannot tell the story of ATV racing's history without the inclusion of Mike Walsh, both for what he's accomplished on and off the track. Our previous episode covered Mike's early days as an ATV enthusiast and the birth of Walsh Race Craft, how his love and passion for the races wouldn't allow him to step away, starting his own race team with Jeremy Lawson, and we left off in the middle of discussing Cody Gibson. So if you didn't hear all of that amazing ATV racing history included in part 1, go back and catch that. On tonight's episode, we'll pick up where we left off with Cody Gibson and cover the crap out of the last decade of ATV motocross. If you enjoyed part 1, I'll tell you right now that part 2 is going to surpass your expectations by a mile. Let's quickly say thank you to all of our incredible partners. CST Tires, go to shop.csttires.com today. Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew. Thanks to Valvoline, SSI Decals, DID Racing Chain, Nemira Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of Haymauer Financial Group, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Factory 43, Bike Strikes and Quads LLC, Integrated Financial Concepts and their Safe to Race and Safe to Ride insurance programs, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, and Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Their clippers rock, their nose hair trimmer is amazing, and the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer is next level. I'm not a procrastinator, except when it comes to gift giving. Oops. Thankfully, Manscaped and their Performance Package 4.0 makes for the perfect gift this holiday season. This kit includes the new Lawnmower 4.0 electric trimmer that I rant and rave about every week for helping me keep a perfect beard, the best nose hair trimmer ever created, and an array of goodies including deodorant, boxer briefs, a travel bag, and more. So check out Manscaped. I wish I would have sooner. Again, if you're like me, coming up with gift ideas can be difficult, but Manscaped is a great gift to keep in mind this holiday season, and get 20% off with free shipping by using code DIGGINGDEEP20 at manscaped.com. Support all these great companies that support us, and for any products that fall through the cracks, click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website to help us out. As we start to shift our focus to the 2022 season, we both know you need parts and gear. No matter what off-road gear parts you need, Rocky Mountain ATVMC has you covered. But before you buy, simply click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner on our website. By using our specific link, we get a percentage of what you buy on the back end. So if you want an easy way to help support us, this is about as easy and convenient a way to support us as there is. So click that Rocky Mountain ATVMC banner at diggingdeepatvmx.com to help us out while satisfying all your gear and parts needs this off season. We can't thank you enough for that. That Rocky Mountain ATVMC link is on the right side of our homepage at diggingdeepatvmx.com, and right underneath that you'll find our new Amazon widget. So same concept. Before you buy from Amazon, simply go to our website, click the Amazon logo on the right side of the screen underneath Rocky Mountain, purchase whatever your heart desires, and we'll get a percentage of what you purchase on the back end. We're all purchasing from Amazon this time of year, so use our Amazon link to help us out while you buy this holiday season. No new donors to shout out this week since part 1 with Mike Walsh, but if you're interested in donating and hearing your name on the show, you can find the Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee donation links on our website, and we can't thank all of you who have donated enough for doing so. Now, it's showtime. The 30-second board is up, it's sideways, and the gate is down. Time to dig deep with part 2 of our conversation with Mike Walsh right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. Let's go. All right, guys, we're back for part 2 of our conversation with Mike Walsh. A reminder that Mike is once again brought to you by DP Brakes, the world leader in sintered brake technology. Visit www.dp-brakes.com. Purchase at your local dealer or message the show for their contact info today. Join nearly all of the top ATV racers on the planet in trusting the high performance and impressive durability of DP Brakes. Again, that's www.dp-brakes.com. Welcome back to Digging Deep, Mike. And when we left off in part 1, we were discussing Cody Gibson, and you gave some of your thoughts on his one season spent racing the pro class, and then he stepped away from racing and didn't return for 2011. And I know he was riding for Mushin in 2010, but friend to friend, did you two ever talk about the decision that he made to step away at all? Was that ever a conversation that you guys had?
Oh yeah, for sure. We just, for us, it was a financial deal mainly. And, it's been, it's small business, and we were looking, put some money back in the Walsh Race Craft account and kind of lay low for a bit, and like I said before, we tried to do that many times, but I just couldn't really stay away. So Cody made his best decision by getting the ride with Mushin, and I didn't I wasn't part of that program at all, so
yeah. Yep.
But me and Cody would always remain friends, and you know what I mean, and stuff. And if he needed, but he, like I said, he switched the support systems, and he kind of it was his own deal, it was something he was doing on his, Cody knows what he's doing, and he made his own choices, and he went in that direction, which he thought would be best for us. And like I said, we didn't want to put that investment into the pro class that year.
Yeah, I just I guess what I was asking, because you guys were always so tight. I mean, you guys were connected at the hip basically for all those years previous to the Mushin thing. I knew you weren't together for that program, but I didn't know if he, I don't know, possibly confided in you or whatever when he was kind of taking that step back or step away from racing. I just didn't know if that was a conversation that you guys had. Well,
not really, because, it was it was kind of a conflict of interest with Mushin running ATV and and things like that. And that's kind of why I said it was kind of his own decisions. As the year went on, I talked more with Mushin, with the man behind the scenes.
Yep.
And things, because things weren't going their way, if you will, with the whole program. But yeah, we kind of separated. We didn't separate, but it was a different deal.
Yeah. Yep. Totally understood. And obviously you still wanted to see Cody do well. So I assume that's where that conversation with you and Mushin came in. You still wanted what was best for Cody. It's not like you didn't want it to go well. So we can leave it at that. So what about recently? Have you talked to Cody at all, like since part 1 of the conversation here by chance? Because he interacted with us a little bit, with some of the posts or whatever. So I was just curious if he listened in or if he weighed in or anything like that.
We text a little bit, but it was minimal.
Okay.
Cody, like I said, like how many people have seen Cody at the track? Probably nobody.
Yeah.
He walks to the beat of his own drum, and like I said, that's what I said in the beginning. Like, we had some problems, we had some some headbutting competitions in the middle. So I learned early that I'm gonna have to finesse this deal. So but then when me and Cody started to gel, that that was it. But I did talk, of course we are very close, but it's one of those deals where we don't talk a lot,
Yeah, of course.
But we respect each other 100%, and we have each other's back if we needed anything type thing.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I think that you guys, with the years that you guys shared together and all the success and everything like that, there's always obviously going to be a bond there.
Right.
So the next kind of chapter in that saga, and actually even before I go there, I just want to touch on the fact that I kind of wanted to tie up that part of the conversation because there's a number of people that always bring up Cody and asking him to get on the show and this, that, and the other thing. And he was one of the very first guests that we ever wanted to have. And I typically try to answer those, comments that we get on our posts or whatever. I'll say it here one more time that I think Cody knows he has an open invitation whenever, if and when he wants to come on. And like you said, maybe, he marches to the beat of his own drum a little bit, but I think it'll happen someday, and our door is open. We're ready to hit record on that thing when he's ready. So for the listeners, just wanted to say that so everybody knows that we're on the same page here. But the next chapter of that in December of 2011, everything would change. The split would come back together because, much to my dismay, Mike, you guys announced that Cody Gibson would be back riding for Walsh Race Craft in the Pro-Am classes. And man, my title hopes were dashed at that point. So tell me about that.
Well, what really happens, and a lot of people don't know this, actually probably very few people know this, but I'm sure everybody knows Cannondale. Mm-hmm. Well, Cannondale was their surplus was bought by a company named US Highlands. So US Highland I met at the trade show and they knew who we were. I didn't know who they were. I did have the opportunity to go visit their facility. Matt Mumberg, the owner of the company, the founder, and and the reason I'm telling you the story is because this was the development of our second generation chassis, which was based on LTR. Mm-hmm. So they really wanted us. They wanted the name. They wanted us to design a chassis for 100 horsepower, V-twin, fuel injected, barrel valve injected, 5-speed transmission, wet clutch, the whole 9 yards. Engine. So of course I'm a yes man. So I'm like, I know. So
hey, you're always down for a cool project. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, for sure. I want to be a part of it, man. I love this stuff. So
yep.
I ended up saying, yeah, me and my brother, and we ended up getting the first engine in, and we had to design an oil pan. And so what we did was we built a fixture. This is kind of the story. We built a fixture, and then we ended up building this monster, just sand dune shredding, sand throwing monster for this. It was kind of designed for more of the older, maybe not older, but like 35, 40-year-old, 50-year-old person that had, he had money at the time. He wanted a cool quad, and it was financeable. So we and it was going to be a big deal. They're supposed to, really invest in the business, and it was going to be a big 200 chassis contract and all this stuff. So we're about halfway done with the bike, 3/4 of the way done with the bike, and they say, hey, we're going to fly in and look at the bike. We're going to give you some money. We're going to fly out the next day. So I said, oh, that sounds great. I can't wait till you guys get here. So it's 3 of them. So they come, they land at the local airport, and we pick them up and bring them in. They look at the chassis, they love it. It's on the table. We go out to eat that night, have a good time. Me and a couple of boys from the shop, and their 3-man crew, and they leave. Well, they fly to Detroit. Is what the story I found. They had their own 421 Cessna, and they fly to Detroit, and then they're flying back to Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Mats was from I guess Sweden, if you will. I think I think US Highlands from there.
Okay.
And and the US Highlands was them coming over here to develop this. They bought all of Cannondale. They're going to use those chassis for their 450. They needed a chassis for their 950, this 100 horsepower V-twin. So they ended up dying. They ended up crashing the plane. Well, they ended up running out of fuel and crashing the plane on their way into Tulsa, and they all died, which was really a really big twist for Walsh Race Craft, because we invested a lot into that project.
Oh
so now,
my gosh. You can't make
right.
that up, Mike. Oh
No,
my
and
gosh.
2 weeks after I got the phone call, it was crazy. And they told me, and so the wives were going to keep the business running. So anyways, I finished the chassis. We hand delivered it. They ended up finishing it, I guess. And then they ended up selling the entire place off at auction, which was really heartbreaking. I really wanted to buy that. If I had the money, I really would have liked to own that bike just because of the history and everything. But I don't know where it is right now. But anyways, that's the story there. So we lost that deal. So I had this chassis jig sitting around. It was LTR based. And I said, you know what? And I picked LTR based because I really do feel in my heart like it's the best platform out there. The YFZ is really good. You know, but if I had to make my choices, I would still say that the platform for the LTR would be the better one if you're going to build a chassis. The YFZ does have a great chassis with the modular technology, with the, you know, with the bolt together chassis, and the flexing. So I give kudos to Yamaha on that one. So this is how we got Cody back. Was I wanted to build a CRF 450 new generation hybrid. So I did. And well, I think I did one for a guy overseas first. And I was like, wow, I really would like to have one. And I'd like to put Cody on it because he'd be unstoppable. So, and so when it hit rev limiter, it made a really cool noise, and everything really cool about that bike. So I said, hey man, I'm not looking to run pro. I just really like you to campaign this CRF, and I'll do you a Suzuki for the Pro-Am production. And that's what we did. We and he agreed to the deal, and it was a lackadaisical deal, but I knew in my heart that Cody, you know, he didn't have to be on the bike all the time. He could be on the bike once or twice a week and he could still perform. So yeah, with that in mind, I knew we could possibly win. So we ended up doing that, and it was a great test bed for that whole project.
Yeah. I think you're right. It was probably the perfect combination for Cody, because like you said, he doesn't need to be out there pounding laps, pounding tons of motos. He can show up on the weekend, have a good time, do his thing, smoke all of us. And yeah, I mean, it was probably the perfect combination. Crazy to hear how that all went down though. I mean, Walsh Race Craft today might be totally different. Like, it's kind of echoing what we said with the stuff in the part one of this thing, but Walsh Race Craft might be totally different today if that were to happen, on that unfortunate, terrible situation to those guys. And look at all the Suzuki based Walsh hybrids that are around now. That might not necessarily be a thing if not for that situation, even though it's terrible. Don't get me wrong, but huge like change of pathways for you guys.
It was, we really, you know, my whole life I really wanted to land some side of a deal like that, to work with manufacturer. So for me it was kind of a dream come true, and then a dream not
but you got the rug ripped out from under you though.
Yeah, it was a crazy deal, but you know, it was still speculation where, yes, we did have the deal with them and we did build the chassis for them, but we didn't know how many chassis. So we were tiptoeing. We weren't like, we're going to leave. We weren't like, we're going to leave ATV motocross and we're going to go build for US Highlands. It was more like, hey, we are ATV motocross and we would love to build your stuff. We're going to have to figure out how to do this.
Right. No, I totally understand. Just nothing is worse though than thinking about the potential of something happening. And then, you know, starting to get to that point where you're like, oh, you know, this could really happen. And then, you know, it doesn't end up happening for whatever reason. That's never a good feeling, but good feeling for you guys that season on the track, because the result of you bringing back Cody Gibson on that bike was absolute domination. 37 moto wins, 18 overalls, a pair of Pro-Am titles. 2012, Mike, you know, especially after kind of the turbulence that you guys went through before the season with all of that stuff, 2012 had to be about as much fun as you guys ever had at the track. You know, that was as dominant as anyone's really, you know, pretty much ever been in a top tier class like that. That had to make for a fun season for you guys.
You know, it really was. a bunch of cowboys, just really living the dream, a great time. And we knew we could win. We knew if the kid stayed on the track, that he was probably going to be somewhere in the front. And we knew what he was capable of. And we had a great time. I mean, we like to, we had a couple people helping us. I mean, Conan Caps he has an employee at the Ssi. He worked, with us and another guy. And, so we were able to share the experience and you didn't have the pressure of running that elite pro class. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have the pressure, but you had all the fun. It was really exciting.
Mm-hmm. No, I felt like I knew that you were going to kind of say that the pressure of that pro class and high stress situations and all that wasn't necessarily there. Yeah, like I said, it probably made, for a really fun summer for you guys. I know, you guys took a number of wins from me that season, Mike, because I finished second to Cody a handful of times that season. Damn you guys. But, honestly, though, you compared the presence of Cody Gibson to showing up in a Lamborghini in part one of our conversation. And that was back in full effect that season in 2012. Even for me, like I was finishing on the podium with the guy and I looked at him like he was Chad Wienen or John Natali or something. That was just the truth, right? Like everybody still to this day, like you can tell by the likes on the posts and the stuff that people comment, like people are still infatuated with him. So he was once again, probably the most polarizing figure at the races that season, even though he wasn't in the pro class. And it was just awesome to have him back at the races. Like the series was better, with him being there, I guess.
Yeah. It was really just his charisma that he brought to the race. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way he rode, all right. So basically, if any normal rider would go through what he went through in just one lap, they would have probably figured out.
Oh yeah.
But the kid just rode through pretty much anything. And this is just an awesome thing to say, pretty much injury free.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Which I mean, geez, who can say that?
Nobody, but he was just so naturally talented. And I love, I love posting the stuff that we do. Like I'm posting, a post here or there about Cody, and you have people that are telling their own stories in the comments, about the amazing stuff that he did or whatever. And I just love that. It's like, It's like stuff of legend. There's only so many riders, especially like the newer age guys that people have those kind of stories about. But Cody's definitely one of those guys. So in 2013, I swear when I remember back to that time period that people were saying that he was going to come back, and maybe I'm wrong in saying that. So was the original plan to have Cody back for 2013 and ride again? Cause I was swearing I was hearing the pro class stuff at that time, but maybe that's not true.
Well, we built them a pro class bike, and that's where, basically, if my memory serves me right, that Cody was gonna, he was gonna come back and race.
Okay.
But it was more work related, more commitment related issue where it wasn't gonna work out for him. And at the last minute, he decided that he wasn't going to race.
Okay. I remember, I like I said, I remembered some of those conversations. I swore I was hearing he was going to come back. But, based on the conversations that you and I had, I didn't know if it was going to be in the pro class or not. But man, I so badly wanted to see that, Mike, because it sure felt like at that time. And again, I said this in part one, but I had a hard time imagining him anywhere other than being up front. Like I felt like if he would have rode like he did in Pro-Am, he would have been a podium contender in the pro class, but obviously that wasn't meant to be. But I just love picturing like what he was doing in Pro-Am in the pro class. It would have been so much fun to watch.
Yeah. And that was the plan. We were gonna campaign again. We were to campaign with a Suzuki. We were replicating his Pro-Am Suzuki, since that bike just worked really good. That was another one of those magical bikes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where we moved. I already was committed to sponsors at that time.
Right.
So I couldn't shut the program down because of my relationships with the people in the industry.
Of course. So take me through then that process of trying to find a fill-in rider, because we know who the fill-in rider was and how that season went. But take me through like before that on, I guess, like how do you find, yourself saying, hey, Nick DeNoble's the guy?
Well, I think it's more, most of the people have had rides or were working on their own program. But Nick was kind of, he was out there. He's a personal friend of mine. I rode for Walsh for a long time. He had some great rides. I knew he could run. I knew he could, like say, if you're going to talk business sense wise, I knew he could get the job done, and he did get the job done. And that wasn't a full on effort. That was a, and that's just how talented Nick is. I mean, it wasn't even a full on effort and he did have results.
Oh, heck yeah, he did. Yeah. Like I feel like, I mean, it was the best season of his career, but I think what you're saying is he was going to get the job done as far as like, he was going to be there every weekend. He was going to be consistent. You knew what you were going to get from him. And as much as I would have loved to see Gibson on the bike that season in the pro class, because I think that would have been a sight to see. I'm so glad that you gave Nick that opportunity. He's such a great guy. Obviously he's from, right in my backyard here. So, I grew up with him or whatever. But he truly deserved that opportunity. He deserved the opportunity to go out on his terms following a nasty season ending injury the season before there. And I was just so stoked for Nick. And then to see it go as well as it did, man, I was tickled pink about that whole deal.
Yeah. And the funny thing is Nick's a Honda rider, right?
He is. Yeah.
So, he had to come in, and I can remember the first time, he came down to test the bike, we really didn't know what he was going to be capable of. I mean, we knew he could, we knew he had a great bike. We knew that as a proven. We knew Nick could ride, but we didn't know if Nick was going to take to that Suzuki or not.
Well, and the other thing going on at that time, and you would know probably better than me, but he hadn't ridden at all. His foot or an ankle, that whole deal like wasn't quite right yet. He didn't know if it was going to work. So I know that this is going on with Nick. Like I saw him through the rehab process or whatever, like come down to the shop, and I knew it was kind of slow process or whatever. It was really nasty injury. And I'm at Waldo getting ready for the season there, and you guys show up, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, Nick, what's up? So it was crazy. I was blindsided by that whole deal. But you guys had a super successful season. Like you said, 7th in the pro class that year for Nick's best season of his career, nearly a podium at one point, but a couple 4ths and 5ths in some motos and stuff. And most of all, looked like you guys just had a lot of fun that season, another memorable one. And again, I was just stoked for Nick to get that opportunity. And then again, for it to go over as well as it did, that was a really cool thing to see for me, because Nick's just such a great guy. Like there's not anybody out there that doesn't like Nick. Right.
Right. And the thing of it is too, that was another Gibson program where we were pretty lax. I mean, we were there to run good, but Nick just brings a very, he makes your job very easy, where he's not super picky. He can ride anything. He's kind of like a Doug Gust. And like you said, with the injuries that he had were serious, so he didn't know how was going to perform,
Yep.
And, but it made it, everything worked out. And, like I said, it was a pro program, but it wasn't one of those ones like with Jeremy Lawson. Jeremy's program was really, really serious. And, Nick, we were going out there and we did well and we didn't beat ourselves up in the process.
And yeah, like you said, Nick is just a fun guy to begin with. And again, to just see it go as well as it did, that made me feel really good about it. He's a guy that really deserves it. And you brought up Jeremy Lawson. You had a knack for working with some of the most naturally talented riders that there pretty much ever were when you think about it. I mean, Jeremy Lawson, obviously a great rider. Gibson, his natural ability was off the charts. DeNoble was underrated in that regard. Like you said, he could ride anything. He was and is an amazing rider. And then, Parker more recently, who's as naturally talented as they come. So man, like think about that group of riders there. Pretty darn impressive when you think about it.
Yeah, I've been really blessed to work with some awesome guys, and they're great riders and they're the best, some of the best in the world, but also they're just good people. It's just in my opinion, I believe that they're just great people too, and the Parker deal, that was a really fun journey in my life as well.
So do you ever wish that Parker would have gotten a few more years? Because, that's another guy who I think like he could have accomplished just about anything if everything were to fall into place for him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Parker is unlimited. I don't know if anybody's looked at his, I'm sure everybody's looked at his Instagram.
Right.
Honestly, me and Parker had an incredibly close relationship because, like I was saying in the earlier episode, Josh, Creamer, he actually worked at the shop. We had a very close relationship, but
yep.
Parker, the Parker story is something else. And if you're ready to get into that, we can get into that.
Yeah, I am. It seemed like for him, when he burst onto the scene, it was like, at least from my perspective, like he came out of nowhere. And then, I find out that he's like a Western Wisconsin kid originally, only a few hours from me, which again, blew my mind. So yeah, like how did you guys get connected? Because like you said, he went on to be a longtime employee for you as well.
Right. So Parker, the year before, or I think it was the year before, it might've been months before. I mean, time flies so fast. I have no idea what's going on half the time.
Okay.
But he texted me, or he was going to train at County Line.
Okay.
Him and his brother, and they were both riding at the time, and they had a white van, and one or both had a Walsh front end. I'm not sure. And they wanted to set it up. So they came in on like a Saturday. They asked me if they could meet me here, and we did a setup for them. And I met them, and I never met anybody like these guys. Like Parker and his brother are definitely two very unique characters. And let me tell you something. My parents, I took this to motorsports, and Dad was always in motorsports, but Dad owned a strip mall, and in that strip mall they owned a bar. So you could say my parents owned a bar for 32 years.
Okay.
So I know unique characters.
Right. I'm sure.
Parker and his brother are very unique people. Parker's got an incredible story. I know a lot of it, and it's very heart touching. It's very heart touching. When Parker went, so we set up his bike. He went, and I didn't see him for a while. Then he decided that he wanted to come down and work as a welder at the shop. And you hear that all the time. Oh, yeah. But when does it really ever work? Here and there, not a lot, but sometimes. Okay. So I just stayed back, and I'm like, come on down. Sure, come on. I didn't beg him. The dude shows up out of the blue in his white van, and I'm like, here we go. And I had a house in town that I used to let people rent rooms out of. Sure. If they're working at the shop, or there's a couple dudes in there living, and it worked out because it's right next to the shop. hold on. I think he moved, and Parker's cousin's pretty famous too, because he actually crashed with Adam Cincerello. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. Yeah. Also another Wisconsin guy. So a pro rider from Wisconsin. Yeah. A bike two-wheeled guy. Yep.
Bryce is also is an incredible rider. Anybody who qualifies for 450 Pro is no slouch.
Oh yeah, he's gnarly, and he's a guy that can push the top 20. So he's like real gnarly. Yeah.
Right. He's a very and Bryce is a very he's a strong-minded person, and he's let me tell you, I spent sometimes me and Parker and Bryce spent a lot of time in the van. You know what I mean?
Right. So,
yeah, because Bryce actually wrenched for Parker.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. And at the time, I knew of Bryce as a rider, right? But I didn't necessarily know his face. So I knew Bryce as a rider. I knew Parker's mechanic, being at the line with us every weekend. And I didn't realize it was the same guy.
Yeah, the connection.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that he was as fast and as good as he was. So, back in my day, 5, 10, 15 years ago, I could be a little rough, and so they, long story a little shorter, they ended up moving to Florida, and Parker, I believe, moved first and worked here, and then Bryce wanted to come because we needed a wrench. So him got their own place, and they were living on their own here, and they were both working at the shop, and then Bryce became Parker's mechanic. But they would go and train together, because Bryce is always a big Yamaha guy, and Parker, of course, was a diehard Yamaha guy for a long time.
I remember.
Right. So they ended up working. That's right. I met Bryce at I met Bryce after the season at Loretta's. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So he ended up moving. So Parker, like I said, very unique, very nice person. Like, Parker is a very kind person and really big heart, huge heart. We had a lot going on.
Yeah, he's a great kid. You saw him get so much faster, so fast too. Like his natural ability. Now to see the stuff he does on social media for the last couple of years and whatever, like it's amazing. But yeah, he's a great kid. I think it must have been, I was at a race, like it was Crawfordsville. Must have been 2019 for the pro only deal, and must have been his mom introduced herself to me, and maybe that's a stepdad, don't quote me on that, I'm not sure, but they introduced themselves to me and were just the nicest people, and you could tell this is where Parker came from, right? It like they were the same, just as nice, just an awesome guy. But yeah, like he got so good so fast. And then did he ever ride for you as a pro, like the full-time pro thing? I know he did the Hinson deal there for a little while, but I couldn't remember how all that went down. But I remember him, like he was in pros. He did really well in pro sport on the Yamaha. And then I didn't know if he raced pro year on the Yamaha or whatever. And then all of a sudden he was on a Honda, and he was a guy that could really dice it up at the front. So that was fun to watch. I mean, I was out there racing with him at the time, but he was a guy that, man, was he good. Crazy.
Yeah. Well, what happened was he wanted to go to that Texas race. So yeah, Parker. All right. So the Parker riding through the shop deal was more of, we were kind of out of it. We weren't going to make a pro effort. So I was going to track to do trackside support and wrenching with Chad and helping out my customer platform and whatever. And it just kind of worked out where me and Parker decided, hey, I'll help you, you help me. Okay. I needed help driving. I was getting older. I didn't want to be away from the shop as much, this and that. So basically we went to the track together, and it was really Parker's endeavor, and I helped. Okay. If you will. So to answer the question, yes, he was a Walsh rider, but no, he didn't get like the royal treatment.
Gotcha. And I guess that's the answer I expected. I just couldn't remember how many years there were there of him, and you guys, and then there was that other little team and stuff like that. I couldn't remember how all that went down. But man, hated to see him go, because I mean, he was in his very last, race to date or whatever. Like, he was a guy that was running in the top 5, so would have liked to just see him stick around, because I mean, he would have been a guy who was right around the top 5 or better as long as he would have stayed around. Right. I mean, there's no denying that part.
No, I mean, really, when, like I said, Parker's a unique guy. When Parker came to the shop, I mean, he was like a vegan or a vegetarian, or I don't, he was like a very odd eater. I mean, everything about him was odd. He'd eat rice cakes all day long. Just things I never really saw before. I mean, my mom's a vegan, my brother's a vegan, and I'm a pescatarian, but at the time I didn't, it wasn't something normal that racers, did. So
exactly,
he had a very, and Parker was, let me tell you, like, Parker was very kind, but he was also a strong person. So, he was, and honestly, me and Parker, we had a ton of fights. I mean, because Parker, I don't have children, and Parker became like my best friend, and my, like, not my kid, but like almost like that.
I understand.
Like,
I understand.
We were like raising each other almost, So it was Parker drive the van 82, it only goes 82 miles an hour. He'd be 82 miles an hour, no matter if it's a construction zone, and we're getting chased by the cops, and Parker, and he gets out of every ticket. He never gets.
Oh my gosh. But you like watch what he does, with the videos and all that stuff. And it's like that fits the mold though. When you think about it, it's like Parker's Parker, right?
Right. But it's funny. I hit a bunch of orange cones one time. I don't know. I was texting and driving or something. Okay. He never hit anything except for at the very end. He backed into something. I could see the trailer had damage on it. And I wake up. I was sleeping in the back. I wake up. What'd you hit? He's like, oh, nothing. But he did hit something.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny stuff. We'll get right back to the show, but now a word from our sponsors. And thank you for listening to these ads. Without these great companies, none of this would be possible. Show your support for the people who support us. Welcome to the team, two-time champ Joel Hetrick, who dropped the biggest news of the offseason when he announced his move to CST Tires. The CST takeover has been gaining momentum over the past several seasons, and now Joel Hetrick and his Phoenix Racing teammate Jeffrey Rastrelli are the most recent additions. The Pulse MXR tire has helped lead riders like Thomas Brown to race wins and 3 consecutive Quad Cross of Nations titles, Nick Janusa to the Pro Class podium, myself Cody Jansen as I rode my Pulse MXR fronts and white label soft compound rears to back-to-back national championships in the Junior 25 Plus class, and the most recent additions have us thinking a Pro Class national championship is on the horizon for CST tires. The Pulse MXR tire, available in soft and standard compounds, offers the highest level of traction, most predictable cornering, and superior wear characteristics when compared to the competition. Visit shop.csttires.com to join the CST takeover today, or prepare to be beat by someone who did. Joel Hetrick, Jeffrey Rastrelli, Nick Janusa, myself, and so many others are believers in CST tires. Are you? CST Tires, where passion meets the ground. You already know we're Team Blue Crew here at the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. Whether it's second all-time winningest, 7-time and reigning ATVMX Pro Class National Champion Chad Wienen, or 6-time and current XC1 Pro ATV GNCC National Champion Walker Fowler, it's clear the podium-proven Yamaha YFC 450R is the winning choice of sport ATVs. This unprecedented success for the YFC 450R, its unrivaled quality and performance, and the undeniable fact that Yamaha is the leading OEM supporter of ATV racing has created a Yamaha takeover within the sport quad market. Better yet, Yamaha's Blue Crew Racer Support Program is back and even stronger for 2021, meaning Yamaha riders are about to cash in on higher payouts and more prize opportunities, including a chance to win a brand new YFZ 450R. For more info, head over to YamahaBlueCrew.com, follow them on social media at Yamaha Outdoors, and check out Yamaha's full proven off-road lineup at YamahaOutdoors.com today. For over 150 years, Valvoline has led the charge by being dedicated to constant improvement and innovation across all disciplines of racing. Valvoline has sponsored some of the greatest names in motorsports, and for the better part of a decade, I've been fortunate enough to be part of the historically great Team Valvoline. From my commuting vehicles to small engines, race quads, and everything in between, I trust nothing but Valvoline in all of my equipment. I've experienced increased function and durability as well as a longer life expectancy thanks to Valvoline's array of products and lubricants. Since 1866, Valvoline has been focused on bettering your experience, whether on road, on track, and everywhere in between. Upgrade to Valvoline today and check them out at valvoline.com. Ssi Decals is a name synonymous with ATV racing, synonymous with big-time success, and absolutely synonymous with the best-looking decals around. An offshoot of their parent company that was established in 1947, SSI first took shape from owner Ian Harris's passion for ATVs. With what started as just making numbers and decals for riders like Chad Wienen, the company quickly took off, and today you couldn't imagine ATV motocross without SSI decals. The graphics maker and designer now supports all the top teams in ATV motocross, as well as teams and riders racing GNCC, Work Series, Pro Motocross and Supercross, Canadian Pro Motocross, short course off-road trucks, UTVs, snowcross, and oh yeah, 6-time NHRA World Champion Clay Milliken. No project is too big or too small for SSI decals, making your identity stick with championship level graphics. Head over to ssidecals.com today and then maybe call the doctor because things are about to get sick. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is brought to you in part by DID and their range of championship winning chains. Powered by technology, DID chains are designed to give you the greatest strength to weight ratio, making them the optimal chain for racing and giving you a championship level edge. DID has been driving championship-winning race programs since 1933, chosen by champions such as Chad Wienen, Joel Hetrick, and myself, Cody Jansen. Champion above the rest is DID's 520 ATV2 chain, with those same design principles and materials being used throughout their entire line of products, including their on-road category as well. Pick up a DID chain today at your local dealer or a reputable online e-tailer. DID. What drives you?
We are proud to be partnered with Numira Technologies. Since 2001, Numira has led the charge in the ATV and side-by-side market, covering more applications than anyone else in the industry. Numira's advanced piston technology uses a NASA-exclusive aluminum alloy that helps to reduce expansion rates, that allows for tighter tolerances, and leads to higher overall engine performance for your machine. For more information about Numira's wide offerings of pistons, rings, gaskets, and industry-leading top-end repair kits, visit your local dealer or online at www.numira.com. Numira Technologies, pistons with an attitude. We are pleased to be partnered with Bronco ATV and UTV components. Bronco has been an industry leader in replacement hard parts and accessories for all makes and models for over 15 years. With a catalog that includes a full line of electrical components, engine internals like rods and cylinders, all the way down to suspension parts and bearing kits. Bronco is your hard part source for whatever you need for whatever you ride. Available exclusively through distributors around the world. Visit your local dealer or online at broncoatv.com. Forworks Carbon's innovative lightweight products include top-notch seat covers, carbon fiber and plastic hoods, gas tank covers, exhaust shields, shock guards, and much more. Whether you have an ATV, UTV, or snowmobile, Forworks has the goodies that will improve your ride and make you salivate. We trust Forworks for increased function and a sexier look, and you should too. Forworks Carbon, always working hard to bring high quality and innovative parts to the market. Check them out today at fwcarbon.com.
So kind of getting back to the story, you actually just touched on this. So as this is all going on, Gibson rides for you again in 2012, DeNoble returning to the series in 13, Parker riding for you guys, and, you guys going to the races, everything like that after that. During all of that, you're a monumental part of Chad Wienen's program, starting with day one and him switching to the Yamaha for the 2012 season. And we know that he came down there to Walsh and basically the entire development process started at your place there. So tell me what you remember of the early days of Chad Wienen's program coming together in the development of the YFZ 450R.
All right. Well, let me touch on this one thing real quick. Chad, when you remember Tommy Totillo, and he had what is now known as Dreamland.
Yes.
You can Google, but it's Luke Rensland's pad. Beautiful, gorgeous, beautiful place. 3-4 supercross tracks, outdoor track. Well, that first, Jeremy and Tommy were neighbors. Okay. Well, they were neighbors on purpose. And what I'm saying this is, Tommy was super into motocross, super into everything, and Jeremy. So it became a training ground for some very, very fast individuals. Well, back when Chad had that breakout season, I almost believe, I'm almost 100% positive that Chad stayed at the shop and trained for a couple months or whatever it was before the breakout season. Or maybe it's the season before. It's one of the seasons when he was on the Honda, remember?
Yes, I do.
And,
yep.
Yeah. So me and Chad had history, a lot of history before the Yamaha program. But going into the Yamaha program, I think we both mutually respected each other for our abilities in the sport. Mm-hmm. So when Chad was deciding what he was going to do after breaking the back on the Can-Am, correct?
Can-Am, yep.
Right.
In 2011, while leading the series. Yep.
Right. So nobody really wanted to take a huge chance on Chad because he was the fastest, never won a championship at that point, but he was arguably the fastest guy out there, and he just had to put it all together. But now he's got the back injury. So he called me. And I can remember I was sitting on the loading dock, and it was probably about 8-9 o'clock. And Chad called me, and he wanted to know my honest opinion. He had an offer from Honda. No. Excuse me. He had an offer from Yamaha, and he had an offer from a gentleman that had capabilities of funding his team to ride Hondas. Okay. So it was, I don't want to say, I mean, it's definitely Chad's decision, but he had asked me about what I thought. And I said, well, honestly, I think you're Chad Wienen, and I think you can win on any good bike. Mm-hmm. And I said, I think the Yamaha is definitely capable of winning. This was a long time ago before.
Oh, this is before any of this success.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Well, it was before the big Yamaha breakout. I mean, you had Thomas, you had Pat Brown, you had some fast individuals on some Yamaha.
But that's about it. Yeah.
Right. So I said, you know what? I really feel like we should go Yamaha because you had factory interests there. Mm-hmm. And if you look back on it, at that point, there was really not too many factories that were interested in racing. Mm-hmm. So with that, I'm thinking to myself, this could be a factory effort. This could be a big deal. And so Chad listened to what I had to say, and I listened to him, and we talked, and we got off the phone, and then he ended up doing the Yamaha deal. Mm-hmm. He ended up deciding that was going to be the best thing for him. And he did it. And then what happened was he wanted our input into the development of the bike. Mm-hmm. So then Chad, after he gets his deal, he comes down with the first Yamaha. And this is where it really gets crazy is Gibson. We were funding Gibson's. That was when we released the hybrid.
Yes, that was 2012. Yes.
Right. Yep. Right. So the same year we released the Walsh Hybrid Generation 2, the LTR platform. Mm-hmm. With Gibson. Here's Chad on the Pro Production Yamaha. Yes. So we're developing Yamaha with one of my good friends, Ryan Cox, who's still super influential in moto.
Yes.
I mean, still, he's probably 3 times. Me and Ryan, I could say we spent a lot of nights together, and we had a lot of Taco Bell runs. And he helped. He pretty much was a big player in developing the Yamaha with Chad.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
So,
he was right there with you guys. Yeah, he was a
right,
pillar of that thing. Yep.
right. Uh-huh.
So yeah, I wanted to, obviously I knew that thing was developed down there. You know, Chad told us that story a few times now. It feels like, about coming down there and kind of locking yourself in the shop, locking all of your guys in the shop and developing this thing. But man, to think about what would have happened. I mean, Chad is such a, Chad is a lot of the reason why there was the big Yamaha blow up, right? That's why so many of us are riding Yamahas. That's why Yamaha continues to support this thing. Like, I just don't think that any of that happens without Chad. So to think about how, monumental of a decision that was, not just for him, but for the sport as a whole. I mean, you look at it now, like I'm not telling you anything you don't know, obviously, but for the listeners, like Yamaha is the only brand that's around. Right. So, I mean, that was a huge, huge decision, and a decision that, really helped probably shape, the sport as we know it today, Mike.
Yeah. I mean, let me tell you a quick story. I agree with all that stuff you said. Well, everybody knows Chris Borch, fast, probably, was, and probably
six-time consecutive
right,
GNCC.
Right.
Yeah. Champ.
Right. So we went into a deal, and it was when Suzuki was kind of getting out of it. We went into his deal with Chris getting the Suzuki program. Mm-hmm. So we won 6 straight national championships on that cross country Suzuki.
Yep.
Chris did. And honestly, the sales were not good. And we learned, and it kind of sounds dumb, but if there's not a lot of people riding the Suzuki, you don't have a lot of people to sell to. Yep. So I would trade it for the world. Joey Borch is one of my really good friends. Chris is a really good friend of mine. And it was a great effort. I'm so proud to be part of that 6 national champion run. Yep. But it really wasn't a profitable effort due to the point where the Yamaha takeover, and he had balance, mm-hmm. Balance was before Chris. Yep. And then Yamaha stayed strong. They actually tried to work with Chris a few times, I believe. Okay. And yeah. So anyway, I'm just touching back on what you said, yep. where the Yamaha had become so influential as such a platform, such a staple in racing. And I'm not going to even lie. I'm going to just throw this right out there, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but Chad Wienen is the reason why the Yamaha is so fat, so great of a platform, and so popular right now, because who's won 7 championships all on the same brand, except for Gary Denton, mm-hmm. Who's a hero of all of ours. Right. But not many people, actually, let's just cut it out. Nobody's done that. Yeah. And with and with the success, listen, how many podiums in a row did Chad have? Mm-hmm. Exactly. How many non-DNFs did he have? The training's proven, the program's proven, everything is proven. Now the Honda's a great vehicle. We saw Joel just, I mean, anybody watch Joel ride that Honda, it melts you. He's amazing on the whole deal was great, but mm-hmm. you still had Chad Wienen on that Yamaha. Mm-hmm. So it was just a proven package.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better myself, because like you said, the whole thing is proven. And for Chad to do what he did, like you said, I mean, nearly 8 consecutive seasons without missing a podium, no breakdowns, all that stuff. Even when it finally ended, or the streak would still be going to this day, it was a chain. It wasn't an engine failure. It wasn't anything, you know what I mean? Like it's just hard to wrap your head around that. And yeah, like Chad and Walker's out there doing it on the GNCC side now. But Yamaha themselves, they're not just letting their riders go do it all. They're making that bike a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better every year. And I was on this show since the very beginning, and now I'm so proud to, be doing the Yamaha thing myself personally. I just had way too many parts to just wholesale switch at any time up until now. But I'm so proud to be a part of that because I truly, and again, I preached it and preached it and preached it, but I want to support the brands that is continuing to support our sport, right? Like without, and again, like you're a guy that's doing all the hybrid stuff. That's a lot of what Walsh does. And that's, so awesome. Again, though, even you don't want to see the factories go away. You don't want to see Yamaha go away from this thing.
Oh no. I mean, we need that sort of support and mainly, I don't know how people take this, but like mainly it's the grassroots. I mean,
yes.
All right. This is a true story. When I was like 8, 9 years old, 7, when I was getting my first four-wheeler, I walked into sports in Norwich and you seen the Honda Pilot. You saw the 250X. You saw the 250R. If you can't walk in and see these new vehicles as a child, what's going to make you want, right, to do this? Are these heroes like Chad and Joel and these guys that are flying through the air? I mean, I love, I have this picture of Dane Molander flying through the air on that big triple on that one of those last races. Yep. And it's just a great video. And I show that video to people that don't even know about four-wheeler racing, but you can show that stuff and you can do that stuff. You can touch people and you can influence people. And if the factories aren't there, then that just makes our job, your job, my job, Chad's job, everybody's job just way harder, because how are we going to influence these young kids to ride?
Well, and not only that, and you kind of touched on this, but the sport would die. The sport would die because not only do people want to like look up to that and all that stuff, but you also need the means to do it. So if a dad can't buy, a Raptor 250 or whatever for their kid to go ride, if they have to find a secondhand CR 85 quad on the internet somewhere that was built 20 years ago and's falling apart, if that's their only avenue to ride, the whole sport will die. It'll just age out. Everybody that's still doing it will, slowly get out of it. You need new people coming in. Just at, like you said, at the grassroots level. Is somebody going to show up at the races with the Raptor 250 and compete? No, they're not. But most likely those kids that are out there on 250 mods or, even 90 mods or whatever, they probably started on a TRX 90 or a Raptor 250 or whatever. You still need that avenue for people to get into the sport. And that's why we need those manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, right. I totally agree with all that for sure.
Yeah. So just tying a bow on Chad's thing. So fast forward 10 years then from you and Ryan Cox and Chad, all you guys grinding away down there. And one thing I wanted to say too, is I remember back to the beginning of 2012 when we were seeing Chad for the first time on the Yamaha, and it was such a foreign sight because we hadn't, Thomas had won a moto on a Yamaha, but we hadn't seen anybody have a ton of success on the Yamaha yet. So it was kind of a question mark at the time, which is funny to think back on now. So then fast forward 10 years and the guy just tied Gary Denton with a record 8 titles, yet his program is very, very similar to day one. Ssi Decals, still there. Maxxis tires, still there. Fly, still there. Walsh Race Craft, still there, which is so damn cool, I think. And I think it's a testament to Chad and his loyalty, how great of a guy he is, all that stuff. But you guys that were there with him since day one, before any of the titles, when you guys kind of formed this thing at the beginning, there wasn't a single title to Chad's name. And now you guys have stuck together for this historic run and enjoyed 8 titles together. I just think that that's the coolest thing.
It is. And Chad, he does it. He's a very strong-minded person. Like I think I said earlier in the other episode, he's the toughest guy I've ever met mentally. Mm-hmm. And he will continue to develop that bike, but first and foremost, he's going to come to the people that supported him first. Mm-hmm. Now, and they will probably step up. I mean, look at what Maxxis has done. They run. They've made. There's been 3 or 4 different types of tires. There's been 3 or 4 different Maxxis tires that have been on that. Yes, been on Chad's bike. Walsh Race Craft. We developed different parts I mean, we started out with the Yamaha spindle, you know, and I'm not letting any cats out of the bag, but Chad is still developing that bike. You know,
no doubt.
He's still developing. I mean, obviously his motor package is phenomenal. And I just want to say that Tom Alaska has taught me a thing or two when Cox was putting the engine package together. You know, they sent the head to Tom, he sent it back. They put it back on the dyno here at Walsh. They made a couple extra ponies. I never thought that would happen. I mean, I didn't even see what was different with the head. I'm like, oh yeah, it looks like the same thing. No, that guy is very talented. Chad has some very talented individuals in his corner. I didn't even know who Tom Alaska was, but
right.
I consider him a personal good friend of mine. And that's just what I'm talking about. Like Chad has the passion to continue to develop. And I think what he does is, he does like what we were talking about when I was talking about in the last episode, when I was talking about like, hey, look, we're kids working on our 4-wheelers and in the shop, you know, we want to change a part and we want to go out next day and ride it and see if it gets better. I think that's what Chad's doing in the off season. And then he wants to go out and show and see what this thing's got during the season.
Hey, it's so funny because we talked to him, you know, on our like race review podcasts and stuff where he talks about the weekend prior and he's like, man, we figured out something with our setup. And I think to myself, I'm like, you've been doing this for 10 years, Chad. How do you figure out something with your setup? But he actually does something with, you know, whether it's the motor package, he's talked a number of times with the handling of the machine. He's literally figuring out these things weekly. And it's like, how does that happen? But that's Chad. He's just so dedicated. And he has a number of you guys that are just as dedicated in his corner. And we've seen the prolific run that, you know, that combo of, you know, his team of guys in his corner, like yourself and him, have went on. And it's been historic. It's amazing.
Yeah. And you see, you know, when he's making those changes, he's, and this is a unique character, Chad. He's building knowledge. He's building confidence. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people, they can't do that. Like as a rider, there's riders out there who can ride the crap out of a bike. I mean, the best of the best, but they're not going to be able to make that little tweak. I mean, I have a story. I'm not going to say this story, but a situation with Chad where he's telling me, hey, we have to use this. And I'm like, why do we have to use this? He's like, because this does this better. And I'm like, no, I'm like, this does not do this better. And he swears. And it's if I would let the cat out of the bag, it's this tiny little thing. And even I am like, that's that, you know, okay, I see the theory behind it, but I don't necessarily agree. I respect your situation, but I'm not necessarily. And he's always like, Mikey, we got to have this one. And I'm like, all right. That's the one, you know, that's what we're going to use. So
you can't argue it, right? Like that's where you come from. You can't argue it with him.
No, and that's not my position to argue. My position is to make the best stuff I can make. Right. And if that build his confidence and he thinks that works the best, I'm not the one jumping 40 feet in the air and going to that first corner pen. Right. He is. I want him to be happy.
So part of, you know, I guess for a period of this prolific run that we were talking about, you actually wrenched for Chad and the result in that was a championship and Mechanic of the Year award and stuff for you. I have to imagine that that's a pretty special honor and some amazing memories for you to have going to war with Chad. That had to be pretty cool for you.
Yeah, it was really an honor, really. I mean, I worked with Chad as kind of a outside consultant under his tent for years before that with different hedges. Yep. And so I knew the program pretty well, and Chad needed somebody he could count on. And honestly, I didn't want to do it. It was something that I had to do. You know, right. I was tired. I was. You know, I mean, everybody probably tell you this. Once you hit 40, man, it's all downhill. So, you know, I'm having trouble getting up and down off I had a few operations from racing and stuff. And, you know, I'm having trouble getting off the ground and up, you know, and changing tires and doing this and doing that. And I'm not leaving a stone unturned. And his program is so methodical where there's not a stone left unturned. So I knew it was going to be a lot of responsibility, but I went into it with my best attitude, and it was an honor to do. And we did it. And I learned a lot during that season, and I got to work with, one of the greatest ever. So I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I believe we also went to the nations.
You did. Yep. You did that year.
That year, and when we won that. So when we came back when we went to the awards ceremony for the ATV banquet, it was massive. I mean, we had won everything that year, so it was like we were tiny rock stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. That was something that we were going to get to, that I wanted to touch on, about traveling overseas with Team USA, being a part of that program. And I knew that was something that was super meaningful for you too. I can't imagine what that's like to kind of go, across the pond and represent, our great country and all that stuff, our great riders. To be a part of that had to be pretty special too. Like you said, talk about the perfect year to be a part of that, and had to be a pretty, a special feather in your cap, or however you want to say it, for Chad to ask you to do such a thing, because he's so meticulous. So that meant that, he had a lot of respect for you too. So to be a part of such an awesome year, win that championship, I think, like you said in the first episode, that's the one that came down to the final moto, I believe. Right. So to do that, to win that title, mechanic of the year, and then go over there and win Team USA stuff too, the Moto Quad Cross of Nations, that had to be pretty freaking awesome to be Mike Walsh that summer.
It was really good. And to win on a mechanical like that was just a feather in my cap as a mechanic, because I mean, you're stressing. I mean, you're just stressing when Chad is out there pounding that bike and they're turning laps, and you're like, oh man, let's hope nothing falls off of this thing. I mean, we're all human, right? So I mean, anything can happen. So
it's a machine, and it's a machine, right. And machines fail. Right. Yeah,
exactly. So it was a feather in my cap, and it was a great honor to be, to do all that, and to learn and to take it all in.
Mm-hmm. So then Quad Cross of Nations, tell me about that.
Oh, that was a really special deal. I was able to go there and be a part of that whole deal, which was really cool. It was, to go to a different, I don't like leaving the US. Let's just get that on the table. I like the US. I'm comfortable here. Yep. This is what I like to do. I know how people talk.
Right.
I know what side of the street to drive on. Yep. So yep. I know but when you leave, everything's different, and it's cool for a short amount of time. Mm-hmm. But it was a great experience to share with those top tier players in ATV racing, and to go over there and just and to dominate like we did was even more special.
Well, and I think that we almost get lulled to sleep in the United States because we see the American flag everywhere. But when you go, I would assume when you go over there representing our country, where then it's like your sense of, American pride has to be so high when you're over there, and then probably increase when you get back here, like come back to the greatest, nation in the world. And it's like, man, like I went somewhere, and at that event, I was representing our country. That's gotta be the coolest thing.
It was really cool because you can't take anything away from those other teams as well, because I mean, when you're wrapped in the red, white, and blue, you got the, Mark Baldwin, Harv does a great job. Mark Baldwin does a great job with that whole program. So when you're wrapped in the USA, in that, and you have a job to do, and you want to do it the best you can, and you have these top tier riders, and you're fighting for your country in a small way, and some of these guys over there are no slouches. I mean, Italy, Ireland's fast. Italy's honestly, I'm going to tell you, there's this guy, Van Griefen or Van somebody.
Yes.
He got this vanilla style haircut.
Yeah,
and
Van Grisbin or something.
yeah,
He's
and
rides that wacky bike.
yes, it's like, it kind of seems like it's special for the sand.
Yeah.
Where it's got
Yep.
gravity.
Mhm.
And he was super fast on that bike. And
Mhm.
hats off to him and all the, Mark McLaren and all the fast European guys and even Argentina. There's a lot of talent out there.
Right.
But honestly, to say this, and I'm not tooting our own horns, but there was nobody more prepared than US, even though we came all the way from the US. We were just so prepared. And we had our issues, we had things happen, but we were prepared in all ways, and we won. So that was awesome.
And yeah, it can't be an easy thing to ride out of a crate either. Like I can't imagine.
Honestly, that first year, I think we went over there and I was with Brandon. Well, Brandon was wrenching for Joel.
Yes.
And Brandon's, I didn't really know Brandon that well, but I got to know him, and he's a great mechanic, a great guy, very easy to work with. And when you can bond like that in those high pressure situations, it's really cool.
Yeah. Yep. You get that team aspect, which you don't necessarily get a ton of in our sport, which is an awesome feeling. Yeah.
We had old man Brown, who was a good friend of mine, and Mark and Harv, and we were a team. Like, so when we go to the nationals, we're all going against each other.
Right.
But when we went over there, it was like, okay, let's combine our knowledge. Let's share secrets and this and that. And we were able to really put it together. Because what do we have? The first year we had the 2 Yamahas and the Honda. So there was a different bike there. So we had to have different spares and this and that. So really cool. I think it was a great experience.
Yeah. So now it obviously wouldn't have been the Quad Cross of Nations, but correct me if I'm wrong, you would have went overseas and raced as well, right? Or in your racing career?
I raced. So I did want to touch on one thing I thought of. I had this check hanging up in my office, and it was for winning the 12 Hours of America.
Okay. So, yeah. When would that have been, Mike?
Oh man, that was on a 250 yard. I had to be like 2099.
Okay.
Something. But we won that, and that was a really huge accomplishment for us. And right, you go with Joe Bird and Doug Gust. I'm not saying it's a shoe-in for the win, but the bike ran great, and all the riders did well. And I think Joey took it over the line, actually.
Okay.
For the win. But yeah, so then moving on, I went over to Europe. I went over to race Rendezvous twice as a rider.
Okay.
Killer experience. We should have won. Everybody I guess would say that, but we ended up, like, me and Jasmine Plant and I think Denny from Quad Breel.
Okay.
We finished second on a Walsh hybrid 525. Yeah. So, but we would have won, but the side cover gasket blew out while we were leading, and we had to stop and change it. And we ended up getting second, but I think it was still the best finish ever for a 4-stroke at that time.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That, like, in the number of conversations we've had with people about that race, it's just like that race is like next to impossible to win. Not that it's impossible, but man, that thing tests you guys to the max.
It's difficult. The pace is fast. You're not holding back. It's kind of like an overgrown TT race.
I was going to say that's why, and it doesn't surprise me that you would have been a super great asset to one of those teams because you were always such a great TT rider, like we touched on.
Yeah. It was, and I rode a long. The first year I went with Dana, I believe, and we had bike problems. It was me, Dana. It was me, Dana, and Jasmine. My memory's a little cloudy, but And then the second year, I think it was me, Jasmine, and Denny. But I don't think Dana went the second year, but we ended up, I ended up running. I think I ended up riding like almost 6 hours.
Oh my God.
Right. So things were going really good and we were doing really well. So we just kept going. And like I said, that was a perfect monster for that race, that 525.
Okay.
But yeah, we came up short.
Well, that still has to be some pretty awesome memories to go over there and do that. So to say that, you went, to Europe as a rider and as a wrench as part of Team USA thing has to be pretty special. And you touched on the Chad, Joel, Thomas, like those guys going over to Europe and, kind of having the band together for the Team USA effort. Then taking it back to the States, I have to ask, was it ever like a hard balance for you while you're wrenching for Chad and you're having to line up against Joel Hetrick, his fiercest rival, who was, just so happened to also be running Walsh products? Was that ever tough for you or was that really not a concern?
It's very difficult for me.
I figured it had to be like walking on eggshells.
Yeah, it's very difficult because, right, you want to do your best for all your supported riders, and Joel has been such a, I don't want to say an easy, but he's been such an easy asset to Walsh. I mean, Joel comes with no negatives. It's we rarely make changes for Joel. Like, okay, so he has his own front end now that we developed. He wasn't really comfortable with the Yamaha spindles. We made some changes there with the Suzuki spindles on the Yamaha, and things really worked out well. But other than a few tweaks and squeaks, Joel's really easy, always performs well, and it is very difficult. That's one of my reasonings for not really going to the track much anymore, because I kind of want to be neutral so that I can help these guys from the home base get the teams the things they need, and they can go out there and duke it out.
Well, that's why I wanted to ask the question, Mike, because I assumed that it was tough. Like, obviously, Joel is a very valued asset, especially when he was on a Honda and Chad was on a Yamaha. You got everybody now at this point, right? Like you had, both of those bases covered, and you don't want to piss Joel off or whatever, or seem like you're partial. Because like he's a valued asset, and Joel too, he won his titles on Walsh products. And, that's obviously a testament to the unrivaled equipment that you guys have developed, but I assumed that was tough. So, I felt like I had to ask the question. But that's awesome. I mean, I'm happy, now he's on Yamaha, but you're kind of developing some different stuff with him. So that's cool too.
Yeah, we are. And Joel's one of the guys that Gibson was close with.
Yes.
So,
yep.
I didn't really know Joel until Gibson. So Cody said he used to go ride at Joel's, and he would say, dude, this Joel Hetrick is an absolute beast. And I think Joel was 14, 15 years old.
Right. Yeah.
Like, nah, he's not, but he is.
Well, and back then, Mike, it felt like he was the second coming of Cody Gibson. When you think of both of them on the Kawasaki's, and then, Joel gets the best of them at Unadilla, right? And it felt like Joel Hetrick was just another Cody Gibson.
Yeah, he's got a lot of Cody. He's got a lot of the same style that Cody. And now Joel's he's really matured, and he's really took his game to the next level. And I'm sure the championships are going to come. I mean, right. I don't want to say anybody's losing, but I mean, Chad has 8 championships. It's a lot.
How the hell do you choose between the two? You can't. You can't. It's 1A and 1B. They're like I've said so many times, because I don't even know how to say it. It's like it's splitting hairs. And I've said that so many times, it doesn't even mean anything anymore. It's just whatever way the dice goes. It feels like they're just, man, it's so hard. It's so hard because they're both so great.
I was sitting in Beef O'Brady's watching the Tampa game for a couple minutes, and I turned over to Beth and I'm like, there's Chad playing.
It's so funny because I've always called him the Tom Brady of ATV motocross, and then you say the same thing that you've been saying it, and it's like somebody sees it the way I do. It's so obvious to me. They just have the same aura. It's crazy.
Well, and he's defying time, because
exactly.
I didn't think Chad would still be this competitive at this age, because who can fence time? Who can stop time? Nobody.
He's getting better. Chad is getting better.
Well, and Joel is younger, but he's getting more seasons, and Chad's getting even more seasoned, but I just don't know when Chad's going, what is he, 36, 37, 38?
Something like that. Yeah.
Close to 40, man. This stuff just don't work like it used to.
I know, it's wild. I can't believe, I would have never guessed, just as much as we wouldn't have guessed 10 years ago that he'd have eight freaking titles now. The way that he just ups his game every year, it blows my mind.
Well, he's a surgeon, man. He is with his body. He's a surgeon with the bike, and he's a surgeon on the track.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't. Every single I is dotted and T is crossed. He doesn't. There's no lapse anywhere. It's spot on everywhere with his program, on the track, off the track, like you said. So yeah, that's awesome to see. As the #1 podcast in ATV racing, it's only right that we partner with the industry leaders in suspension tuning. Insert Impact Solutions. Impact Solutions is a full-service ATV and side-by-side suspension center specializing in the revalving and service of your motocross and off-road suspension. With over 25 years of elite-level knowledge, experience, and testing with riders of all ages and ability levels, Casey Greek, Jay Goebel, and the Impact crew strive to exceed clients' expectations for service and setup. Impact Solutions is the official Elka Suspension Service Center of the United States, offering unmatched product knowledge and experience. Whether you're in need of service, parts, warranty, sales, or technical support, Impact Solutions has you covered. Head over to impactsolutionsatv.com or give them a call today.
We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin.
The following message is brought to you by Manscaped.com. The Manscaped engineering team has outdone themselves this time, creating the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, now available for purchase in the US and Canada. Join over 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, an official sponsor of the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, with this exclusive offer of 20% off and free worldwide shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. I'm one of the first people to try the new 4.0, and I am blown away. This thing is next level. What sets this trimmer apart from all the rest? The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. It features a new multi-functioning on-off switch with travel lock for those of us who like to travel. And my favorite, the new trimmer allows you to customize your trim with 4 different guard lengths, an upgrade from its predecessor that only featured 2. If you're listening, you know that good tools are a must, so wait no more to get the best tools for the job. Get 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at Manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at Manscaped.com by using code DiggingDeep20. The Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast is also sponsored by DP Brakes, a longtime supporter of ATV racing and the world leader in sintered brake technology. DP has been dominating the ATV world for decades, supporting the best four-wheeled racers on the planet. 2021's impressive lineup includes Joel Hetrick and Jeffrey Rastrelli of the Phoenix Racing Team, myself, Cody Jansen, and my back-to-back national championships, Baldwin Motorsports, Ford Brothers Racing, Nick Janusa, Wesley Wolf, and many more, including all of the top 14 GNCC Series pros, led by the champ Walker Fowler, Bryson Neal, Cole Richardson, Jared McClure, and Chris Borich. These top riders continue to appreciate the high performance and impressive durability that their DP brakes have to offer, products that ultimately help place them on the top of the podium. Available at www.dp-brakes.com. Purchase at your local dealer or message the show for their contact info today. What are you waiting for? Join the best ATV riders in the world on DP Brakes. 15 years into the brand's existence, Factory 43 is back with us and continuing to make huge waves in the ATV world. For the second consecutive season, Factory 43 is the official aluminum parts choice of the Phoenix Racing ATV team, providing their state-of-the-art Evo Nerf bars, MX-style front bumpers, and grab bars for some of the fastest riders on the planet. If you're in the market to upgrade your Nerf bars, bumpers, or grab bars, head over to factory43atv.com to see their full line of products available for all makes and models. Want to be just like Joel Hetrick and Jeffrey Rastrelli riding with Factory 43's industry-leading products? Head over to factory43atv.com today.
Success in the ATVMX world is similar to what creates financial success as well. The right people, the right advice, and more importantly, hard work and the benefit of an ongoing relationship as situations change and adversity is experienced. Do you have the right financial advisor to help you reach your goals? Haymower Financial Group can create a personalized, goal-based plan to help your family prepare for whatever life brings. Call me, Scott Haymower, at Haymower Financial Group, a private wealth advisory practice of Ameriprise Financial Services, at 920-338-8150. That's 920-338-8150. Offices located in beautiful De Pere, Wisconsin, with registrations and clients nationwide.
So in part one, you talked about kind of along those same lines. You talked about, your involvement with Doug Gust and Harold Goodman, those programs over the years in the past. At the same time, you were lining up against them. So kind of like, I wanted to touch on if that was a weird balance with Joel and Chad. I guess, was that ever a weird balance while you were racing against them? You were racing against them, but also part of their programs and building stuff for them. Was that ever hard for you, or was it just normal because that's how it always been? And now I think what you're going to tell me is it wasn't hard, because you did tell us that, that if Doug won, it was kind of like winning for you too. So I'm assuming that this wasn't as hard as the Joel and Chad thing, but I wanted to ask that because I didn't get a chance to ask in the last conversation.
No, it was much easier than the Joel and the Chad thing, for sure. Much easier. Honestly, like I said, hey, if I was running up front, and I wasn't there to block anybody, but if I could stay there, then God bless me. So it really wasn't, of course I didn't want to get in the middle of Tim Farr and Shane Hitt on a TT track, and take Shane out or something.
Right.
That I would give him the grace, I would give him the line or something. But on the moto track, back then, a lot of it was stamina and different obstacles that some people couldn't do or some people could do. I mean, this day and age, almost everybody is doing every obstacle. Back then, I mean, you had obstacles that people just weren't doing, and some people were doing, and it was just a different era. But no, it wasn't, because like I said, if Shane or Joe or Chad, or I mean, not Chad, but if these other guys that wrote our stuff, Doug, it was just a win for the company, and I thought that was awesome. I almost would rather see them win, to be honest.
Yes, yeah, better for or just as good for the business, I should say.
I'd be back there fighting, and I would see what was going on in front, and I'd be like, "Oh, Doug's got the line," you know what I mean, or something. You know what I mean? And I'd be like cheering for them, Well,
but I respect that outlook or whatever so much that you were able to go out there and love what you were doing and have some fun at the races and, just the riding portion, but also being like, hell yeah, for guys running your stuff. I love that. Like, that's so awesome.
Well, in my mind is like, and I think I take this to extreme, but I say, you got to know who you are and you got to know what you're capable of. Every man needs to know his limitations. I think that might be a Clint Eastwood line or something, but I knew that I wasn't a Doug Gust or a Joe Bird or Shane. Sure. I knew that I had my place, but it wasn't up there battling for the moto win. Sure. So So, and I was happy with who I was at the time. So it just worked out good.
Yeah, I love to hear that. Okay, one last topic as far as like, feeling out these balances and, I guess, yeah, I don't know, weird isn't the right word, but feeling out all these kind of different scenarios. Was it weird for you when Phoenix brought on Doug Roll as a consultant or whatever you would call him to that program? Because obviously Roll is a competitor of Walsh, of course. So what was that like from your perspective? I know now you've told us already that, Doug Roll from Roll Design is somebody you look up to. He's a friend and all that stuff. So I know there's no like hard feelings there, but from afar, I always kind of scratched my head and thought, man, I wonder how Mike feels about that.
Well, let's get to the Phoenix team. We haven't talked really much about Phoenix. David Eller's done a ton for the sport. He's brought some really awesome hardware to the track. Definitely a guy that's totally into it, totally got Joel's back, and has elevated the sport, right? So I respect David and his decisions, right? First and foremost.
Okay. Yep.
Bring Roll. That happened. Here's the deal. Like, we weren't affiliated with Phoenix. We were always affiliated with Joel, but we weren't affiliated with Phoenix. So Phoenix was running Roll stuff on like Hayden and, or other bikes. So even Hagsma, maybe, I'm not sure, but they were running, or Phoenix was running Roll or some JB, and we weren't really a part of the David Eller Phoenix program. And now I actually looked at it as a way that maybe we could get in there and get the whole team through Joel's success.
Yep.
So when Roll was back at the track, yeah, I was a little nervous because I knew that he had a lot of influence on that team and he had a lot of influence on Joel's program. But here's why I really respect Doug so much is he supported the Walsh product. He basically told me, I'm not going to go into great detail, but he was a fan of working with the Walsh product.
Sure. Awesome.
And that was really awesome. It was more like he wanted to be a doctor on the shocks and a doctor on the setup rather than welding and fabbing. And me, I really liked the product line.
Right.
So kind of meshed.
Okay.
Almost. And I actually kind of feel like, with the, when we did get in real good with David, I kind of feel like that was, Doug probably helped that, to be honest. So I think in the end, it really worked out well.
That's so awesome to hear. And I mean, you could tell from the outside as it kind of played out, like there was no drama, there was no hard feelings, anything like that. But I just remember at the beginning, like wondering, man, I hope that they're not, I hope that they didn't bring Doug in to kind of infiltrate, into Joel's program or whatever, but that's obviously not what happened. So that's awesome to hear. Obviously, Mike, these conversations are epic. Can't thank you enough for doing this, by the way. This has been incredible. So as we kind of finish up here, I want to kind of fire some broader questions at you about your career and the industry as a whole, starting with your favorite quad. And you brought this up in the first episode a little bit. I believe it was maybe one of your CRF hybrids, I think. But you've built, some of the most incredible ATVs ever built. So if I were to ask you your favorite, which one would it be?
Well, my personal favorite quad I ever had was my 2003 powered Walsh CRF 450 hybrid.
Okay.
That was the bike that I had the most success on, and I was on that bike in TT form too. And that was that bike that was ahead of Shane in that picture that you posted.
So is that the blue and white one? Is that
Yes.
what it was? Okay.
Yeah. And it was the bike I won Montreal on.
Okay.
So that was probably my favorite race ever, was the Montreal but
Okay.
in that bike, and then that was just a beautiful working bike. And Wayne put a lot of development into the shocks because he knew that the 4-strokes were coming.
Mhm.
And Shane was riding one, and Tim dabbled with one. And so it was kind of, it's weird. It was kind of ahead of its time. It was almost a cheater bike, to be brutally honest. It worked so good that it was, okay. So let's bring it back. So at Southwick when Joe Bird, I believe, had the points lead going into Southwick.
He did. Yep.
And lost to Jeremiah on a 2-stroke. And that was a heartbreaker for Walsh Race Craft because that was a 250R. I think it was a aluminum frame, LED or LRD.
Yep.
And that was a heartbreaker for Walsh. Obviously, Jeremiah did very well, but and for Joe. But that was that chassis too. So they became very popular very fast.
That's awesome to hear. I thought that was what we were going to hear, but I wanted a little more details from you on that quad. Okay. Toughest competitor or fiercest rival. Did anyone kind of fit that mold for you while you were racing? Did you have somebody who it seemed like every weekend you found yourself battling with that person?
Oh yeah. So I had this one year in TT on that 4-stroke, and that was when Corey had the Yamaha.
Okay.
And we went at it in TT, and we were both bigger guys. I think he's bigger than I am, but we were both on the 4-stroke Pro-Am, and I ended up winning that championship. I hole shotted him, and that was an epic moment for me because, right, who beats Corey? How many people, Corey's, a legend, and it was a beautiful race for me, and he made me work for it. I mean, he's all over me, but I can't say that me and Corey had a lot of, we raced pace together, but Corey was always a faster rider than I was on most days, so that, I would say he was a rival, but you got to look back also onto like, any ATV where you had like Havisto, you had, Peter Carlotto, which, nobody probably even knows, but he raced pro for a while. Sean Sermini, he's an announcer now, I believe, from Shocks or something. But yes. Right. So there was just a lot of people. Chad Lohr, he raced with under the Duncan tent. These are more guys like 10 to 14th place, guys that I would battle with every weekend. Runkle, Steve Runkle.
Steve Runkle, he's from Wisconsin.
Runkle.
Yes.
This is things, going back, like you said, we all have our personal battles on the.
Well, and I'm always so interested to hear that, right? Because if it's not always at the front, maybe the viewer doesn't remember that, doesn't see it or whatever. But we all have those years or whatever. It's like, man, I can't get away from this guy. Man, Steve Runkle, that's so funny. I've wondered when Steve's name was going to come up on one of these things, because he was a gnarly guy. Like I had to race him as a little kid, at the local cash races here in Wisconsin. Right. And I'm 14 and he's racing me to the death for $1,000 on Friday night,
Yeah.
So,
in Chad Lohr, I don't know if you know that name. Do you know
I
that
do.
name?
I do know that name. Yes.
Chad, we battled every weekend for a couple seasons, and it was just that thing. You guys would be both just dead 20-minute mark. You know how it is.
I do. Yeah. We're
out there doing it,
there's always that guy where it's like you forget that you're tired and you're like, man, I gotta get that guy, like, or I should beat that guy, know?
Well, and that's it. Like I know for a fact that most, and maybe not, it's not so much as it is now anymore, but like when we would line up, I could look down the line, and this is how crazy it was. I could be like, I could be him. I could be him. No, I can't be him. Can't be
exactly. Him. Yes.
It's like, who you can beat and unless there's a mechanical.
Right. Well, I always thought to myself, Mike, like in the pro class, I'm like, why do we qualify? Like I'm not gonna beat that guy or that guy or that guy or that guy or that guy, but I got these guys covered, and it's gonna be this way every weekend,
Right. Well, and that's why I really love the grassroots stuff because you got 4 or 5 laps, you got it on the weekend, you got maybe a Sunday or a Saturday, you're with your family, you might not be on your race bike, you might be on your practice bike, but right. I mean, I had some of the most epic times race at District 34. I mean, that's where I cut. And then Roy Lampron. I mean, I don't know if you know this name. He was an open pro. He was he battled with Eichner and would maybe win sometimes because Roy was so talented on a Banshee. Then he got a 250R. I mean, and there was riders like Roy, that he was in the Todd Vescovi era and the Travis Spader era, which Travis didn't come down as much, but there was those guys. And hey, if you pulled a good start and you had 4 good laps in you and you could do all the obstacles, you got a chance of maybe winning and being like, hey, I beat that guy. You know
right,
what I mean?
Exactly.
And then that guy might go out the next weekend and he might go to Loretta Lynn's and he might win the thing. You know what I mean? And so it was a lot different then as it is now. It seems like it's more cookie cutter and I don't want that for the sport because like look at NASCAR, look at Pro Stock, look at these, look at all this cookie cutter stuff. And that's the one thing that I really wish we could get a different manufacturer in the pro class rather than just Yamaha. Let's throw a couple more Honda there or something.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have people that say they hate seeing a class full of Yamahas, and I understand that because we all want to see diversity. I mean, Yamaha wants to see diversity. Chad is begging for diversity. He doesn't, Yamaha needs that too. At the same time, it is this balance. It's this, we want to support Yamaha obviously because of everything that they're doing, but we want somebody more than Yamaha. So I understand people wanting to see some more diversity there for sure.
Well, you're correct. And it's the competition
exactly
that breeds innovation.
Yep.
You see?
I do exactly. Well, go ahead.
So just say if the EZ 2517 has won 20 championships, I don't have to make a different linkage. And that might not even be a good, say it's not even that great, but it's going to be the linkage.
But you're not getting pushed to change it.
Right.
Exactly.
Push. No. And that's the thing, like, and it makes my job a lot easier because, hey, we don't have to develop as much. But then again, it doesn't do anything for ATV racing, as a whole where, hey, look, we're pushing the envelope. And that's what Chad does every year. He tweaks and he squeaks. And I think that's why the Yamaha is as good as it is right now.
Well, to the last comment I'll make about that is for the last 10 years, you've seen the Yamaha get better and better, but they had been shooting for, the Honda because the Honda was the machine for so long or whatever, it was hard to argue against that. Well, now I think even you can kind of read into some of, Chad's comments where he's like, okay, well, now Yamaha is clearly the best production bike and we have all this market share now. And next year there's going to be more Yamahas at the track than Hondas probably. Is Yamaha going to stick with it? Obviously by supporting shows like mine and, the riders they support and giving away a bike to the pro quad or to the production stock, classes and stuff like that to be raffled and all the stuff they do for Chad. All that stuff is awesome. But nobody wants to see it go away. So,
well, I'd like to touch on one thing you just said, if I got a moment.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to touch on the production stock class.
Okay.
Publicly. When they first talked about the class, I wasn't initially a major fan of it, but me and Chad talked. Chad called me because I think Parker made a comment on a post or something, and it was a little bit over the top. So me and Chad got to talking, and I became a big fan of the class because I like jet skis and stuff, and I wanted to race a jet ski, but I don't want to put I don't want to put $20,000 into this jet ski. I just want to take a jet ski and I just want to go race it.
Right. It's like spec racing. Yeah.
Right. So if we had this production class, and I'm not necessarily saying for the pros, but if we had and maybe we do, I don't know the rules right now too well, but maybe if we had a B class or a C class and an A class, just 3 classes that would give the grassroots guys or the people maybe say you have a son or you know, and you want to race and you want to you just want a stock bike to ride, maybe throw a stem in it and some bars and some wheels and tires.
Yep.
I really think that's very important. And I'm pretty upset that I had heard that it did go away.
So I'm so glad that you wanted to touch on it, because I'm kind of been waiting. I didn't want to just go out there and, you know, kind of, I don't know how many people want to know my opinion. But being that you cracked the door open, it just blows my mind that they want to run this class out, these classes out of here after only a few seasons. And the pro stock class was awesome to watch. It was great for viewership. It was great for people to see, hey, these guys can go do, you know, lap times that are within a couple seconds or a few seconds of their pro quads on stock quads. It's a great selling point for Yamaha. If nothing else, the series should want to do this, because Yamaha's continuing to support our sport. So why would you chase Yamaha out there? Now, from what I understand, they're canning the pro stock class, but they're going to keep production stock class for like B riders or whatever. And in the past, they've had a B class or an AB in a C class. Well, this past year, there was next to no riders in the C class. Okay. Which I thought from the very beginning, a production C class is probably a tough sell, because it's a great concept, but what is a person that buys a stock Yamaha, what are they going to put on their quad? They're probably going to buy some Nerfs and a pipe. And as soon as you put a pipe on it, well, how many C riders out there that might not go to all the nationals? They probably don't. They're just going to show up at High Point or whatever their local national is. And now, oh, my bike has a pipe on it, so I can't race this class. So I knew that the C class was going to be a tough sell, but I thought that a BC would be a good thing, because any C riders that would actually want to run it, and there was a couple this year that went to all the races, that they can race that class still. But then, you know, in the B classes, there's more strategic, probably riders and strategic people building quads for those classes or whatever, or the classes that they run, I should say. So I could see some B riders saying, okay, we're going to keep this quad stock. We're going to flash the ECU. We're going to put some Nerf bars on it, and we're going to make a good run at a national championship in a stock class. So I thought a BC would have been a really good sell. That's the way it should be now. Now, in my opinion. Now, I don't know. I know that the production stock A class or whatever didn't have a ton of riders either. And my thought was, why are we canning pro stock and we're going to keep, you know, the one BC class or whatever? Why couldn't we, you know, have a BC class and then keep pro stock as it is, because it had pretty good numbers. I mean, pro stock had pretty good numbers all year long, and the racing was really good and everybody loved it. And Chad got to be out there, and Joel got to be out there, and Janusa got to be out there, and they got to show what these quads could do. And then you could open it up, because right now, you know, you could be a pro, you could be a pro-am or pro sport rider. And I think you could be like an A class rider too and run that class. So why wouldn't we have 2 classes for 2022 and give this one last run and have a BC? So you'll have B guys that are truly trying to run and race this class and win a championship. Any C riders that have stock quads could still run it. So that would be 2 classes coming to 1 to hopefully gain your numbers. And then you can't tell me that we couldn't get 15 guys if we had, you know, the pro stock class as is, plus having A class guys run that too. So you don't have a production stock A, they just have to run pro stock, which my argument in the past, look at all the good. And I know you weren't at every one of the races, you know, in 2020, but look at all the good that the pro stock class did for Max Lindquist. Well, he was running Pro-Am. So as he was spanking everybody in Pro-Am, he was also on Sundays running pro stock, and it became this middle bridge where he was clearly the best pro-am rider, but he was able to go out there in pro stock and race Chad and in I don't know, Joel wouldn't have been out there at the time, but he was able to race against Janusa and some of these other really good Thomas Brown, some of these other really good pros. And I guarantee you that Max was better in 2021 because he was able to run pro stock last year. And it just irks me, not only for Yamaha, that they're gonna that's a huge asset to them, that pro stock class, but that riders presumably like riders upcoming that will be in a similar spot to Max Lindquist in 2021 or 2020, I should say, they're going to lose that bridge. And now you just take a kid who, like, if Max wouldn't have had pro stock, he went out there and dominated pro-am, and now you just throw him to the pro class. And Max is, another worldly talent as a 17, now 18-year-old kid. But without that pro stock class, he wouldn't have been the same rider this year. I would almost guarantee it, because he spent a whole season, even though they were on stock bikes, so they're a little slower, a little safer, but he was able to learn the racecraft from those guys. I'm talking myself blue in the face, but it kills me to think that they're letting this production stock and pro stock classes get away. It just, I would do anything to open up their minds to let's give us one more run with this thing. It just irks me beyond belief.
Well, I think you said some really good things, but I really want to touch on the part where you said the pipes. Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I think they should, now thinking about it, they should let an aftermarket exhaust on, because like you said, what's the first thing somebody does? They change the pipe and they map it, right? Mm-hmm. That's the first thing, right? So, and let's also look at, like, in my mind, we got a racetrack. You can hear somebody coming up behind you if they have a pipe on it. If they don't, you don't really know what's going on. I kind of feel like it's a little bit safer. Loud pipes save lives. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like it's a little bit safer. Yes, you probably got more entries, and why do they have to run a stock pipe? That's it. They're heavier. I think that's an amazing thing that you said, and all the other things that you were saying about how, Max was able to transition. And that brings me back to the super mod class, or the super mod was kind of like a transitional class. Mm-hmm. Back in the day with the two strokes and stuff. You could run A, and then you could run, I guess it was like a pro-am, but it was called like super mod. And then like top five pros would be racing that too. So you could kind of see where you stacked up. Right. And like I said, you could kind of do that with the production class. So yeah, I really was kind of like in awe that they put the kibosh to that. And I
couldn't believe it. I was blindsided by it.
Yeah.
I hope that somebody clips this. I hope that somebody like takes this and clips my audio and sends it to those guys, because I'm not trying to be difficult. I hope that they know that. I think that there's going to be major ramifications to this. I really do. Like nothing good comes of this. I mean, they already double gate classes and stuff that don't belong together. So we can't lose these classes. We can't lose the stock classes. Like you said, grassroots. If we lose that, there's going to be much more trickle down effect than I think that, the governing body realizes. I truly believe that.
It's going to turn into a very niche sport. It's already a niche sport, but it's going to become more recluse than it was. And you're going to see only the hardcore racers that want to spend that money to get to these nationals. And that's the thing, like you get the stock class, and then and just one thing I want to talk about a little bit is I keep telling people we need these local tracks, and here in Florida. And now I just talked to Max actually, and Max was gonna work at the shop a little bit while he trained at Waldo. Well, guess what? Waldo now put the quads. So Waldo has been with quad. That's where Lawson started training in '06 when he came to Walsh.
Okay.
We didn't have our own personal track at the time. So now and then John Natale used to train at Hard Rock. I used to train. Tim Farr used to. We always used to go to, from all over the world, country to Hard. You can't go there now. I know Chad's got a few places that he rides, which I don't know that I've never been there, but I know they're reputable tracks. But you got so many of these tracks that are shutting the doors on quads, and it's just bad. And it's bad for the sport because if you take a kid if you want to go into a motorcycle shop and you want to buy a quad or a dirt bike, and you can't ride the quad anywhere but on your own property, you're probably going to choose the dirt bike.
Of course you are. Yeah, of course you are.
So
yep.
It's slowly killing. And the side-by-sides are like taking off, and this mud stuff's taking off, but motocross is being held at bay. And we need to find a solution to this.
We've had a number of these conversations. Like we talked to Shane about this, and there's specific locations out there that have people that are doing, great things for the ATVs and truly continuing to prioritize ATV racing. Shane talked about Dan Harris at Breezewood. Man, I wish I was closer out there to the East Coast or like Deckers are doing. Like Deckers have this playland. Yep, has this playland for ATVs, and ATVs will always be created equal at Deckers. We need more places like that because here, like, man, I either have to drive 2 hours to a private track, or I have to drive 4 hours south to Sunset Ridge and ride on, a weekend down there. But otherwise, like, it's really hard for me to find places to ride, and that sucks.
Right. And I was talking to one of my buddies and good customers up north, and I guess any ATV has transitioned again from ownership.
I heard that. Yeah, I actually just heard that since our last conversation. Yes.
Right. Yep. So I just feel, and any ATV was a big thing. At one point they had 400 entries. I guess now they're down to 150 or so. But we need to find a solution for all these people that live or make their living off, and not only their living, but their hobbies or their recreational, or health, or their mental health, whatever they do with ATVs. We need to keep it going.
Well, like you said, yes, like hobbies, like period there, because it can be our favorite thing to do, but if we have nowhere to do it, you're going to come up with something else to do,
Right. That's exactly right. No matter what. I see a lot of my customers, they transition to dirt bikes because they love moto.
Right.
But they can't ride. And
they can't ride nowhere.
Yeah. And the worst part about it too is, and I don't want to, like sound like a person that's complaining or a victim's mentality or mindset, but people don't give the ATV guys the credit, these some of the bike guys that they deserve. They're I don't want to say this publicly, but they're at some places they're looked frowned upon. Me and Lawson went to Dirt Farm or me and Gibson, I think it was me and Gibson, somebody, maybe Parker, but we went to Dirt Farm to ride. They told us there's the door. They would not, and we were professional athletes at the time. They wouldn't let us ride at Dirt Farm.
Right.
Which was just, it was ridiculous,
Right.
So even my local track right here, right in my backyard, and me and Bryce Ford went there during early testing, and we had to ride the small track because they wouldn't, and the small track's really not even a track. They wouldn't even let us on the big track. And that was right here in Live Oak, basically.
Right. So, but that's just those people being oblivious to it, because as I've said on so many of these podcasts, anybody that's in the know. So the people that give the most respect to the ATVs are the pro bike guys, our legitimate pro bike guys, or people who have been around professional ATV racers, that they have no issues with quads. None, because they think they're badass what they can do on ATVs. It's the people that are completely oblivious to it that don't give quads any credit and say, well, you don't belong out here or whatever, because any good bike rider, pretty much, as far like with my track record, and we had Heath Harrison on the show. We've had, we have had pro bike guys on the show saying, giving the ultimate praise to quads. It's the local, dude that thinks he's super good.
Right.
That's the problem,
Well, and it's funny, I do see some crossover going on in some sports, and one of my respected friends, Kevin Keene, he actually helped RJ Hampshire in his move up the ladder with
Sure.
Husky and that. Well, he introduced me to a gentleman named Ronnie Ranner. You know him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So 10-time gold medalist.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to texting Ronnie about some things that I'm looking to do in the future. And he's a crossover guy. I mean, he's wailing on side by sides and dirt in circle track. He's not just doing moto, he's doing side by side moto. And he has all these facilities. So I mean, like you said, there is a lot of crossover going on, but the ATV side of it kind of gets overlooked. I saw a commercial. It was funny. I think it was with Jeremy McGrath. It was some old commercial, and I think he rode a 4-wheeler or something. It was and I was like, wow, that's really cool.
I remember. I do remember that clip of him on the Banshee.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that it was on one of those videos back then. I don't remember which one it would have been in like the late 90s or whatever. Yeah. And I remember that like it was yesterday. Like, whoa, Jeremy McGrath on a quad. So
yeah, I was pumped about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly. He's like, yeah, I couldn't handle this thing for any longer than these couple. And I've told the story before. So we were at Croom, and the year was 2006 or 7, and we hear somebody in the woods freaking ripping. Right, you got that sound of somebody who's really going for it. Comes out of the woods, ripping, wah, wah, wah. And it's 199. It's Travis Pastrana.
No way.
Pulls up to, I don't know if you'll remember this name, Corey Gauthier, who's from up here. He was a Pro-Am guy at the time, Podium Pro-Am. And Corey was there on his quad, on his YFZ, pulled up to Travis, typical Travis, just as you would picture him to be. Hey man, awesome day for riding, blah, blah, blah. Hey, can I ride that thing? He says to Corey, and he said, as long as nobody takes any pictures, I really want to ride that thing. And he rode it for like 30 seconds or a minute and came back and said, man, my thumb can't handle the thumb throttle. And that's I remember him offering Corey, he said, yeah, Corey, you can ride the factory, RM if you want. And Corey's like, no, I don't want to touch that thing. But
Corey who, Ellis?
Corey Gauthier from up here. Yeah. So, crazy story how that works though. But tying all that up, it's never the fast, dirt bike guy that has an issue with the quads, because the stories, I mean, I was there. I watched Adam Cincerillo and Dylan Ferrandis and Eli Tomac and name the guys one after one at Crawfordsville in 2019, watch the whole quad motos and be in awe of what they were seeing, watching Joel and Chad and all those guys jump Godzilla and that giant new triple in the middle. They're not the issue. It's the issue. The people that discredit quads are the people that don't know what quads are capable of.
And just one last thing, I did hear that it necessarily wasn't really the dirt bike riders, it was more the insurance for the tracks without allowing ATVs and only allowing dirt bikes. I heard it was easier and cheaper to get insurance. Now I don't know if that's just a cop out or what. I just heard that recently.
I've never really heard that excuse before, but again, I would still blame that on ignorance going up the ladder to the insurance companies, because it's no different, Mike. And you know
Right.
that, but it's no different. It's just not.
Right.
So,
No. Well, that's wicked.
Insurance. It's not something everyone likes to talk about, but let's face it, if you race motocross, it's something you should have. Integrated Financial Concepts is an independent financial service and insurance firm who offers moto-friendly insurance and helps out riders like Nick Janusa, Jeffrey Rastrelli, and Joel Hetrick gain confidence on the track. With their unique Safe to Race and Safe to Ride programs, if you qualify, they have the ability to offer life insurance with living benefits to those who ride. With these living benefits, you may have the ability to access a portion of your life insurance policy while you're still living for things like cancer, heart attack, stroke, or chronic illness. They can also help with many other things, such as home, auto, motorhome, and trailer insurance, as well as college planning, special needs planning, payroll processing, as well as group health benefits for your business. So whether something happens on or off the track, Integrated Financial Concepts has you covered. With their complimentary one-on-one appointments, what are you waiting for? Reach out to Mike Daniele at DANIELE_Michael at nlgroupmail.com today and see how Integrated Financial Concepts can help you. Living benefit riders are supplemental benefits that can be added to a life insurance policy and are not suitable unless you have the need for life insurance. Riders are optional and may require additional premium and may not be available in all states or on all products. This is not a solicitation for any specific insurance policy.
Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC has been supplying riders with aftermarket components from the industry's top brands for over a decade. With over 80,000 products in stock for your ATVs, UTVs, metric and HD motorcycles, dirt bikes, and snowmobiles, Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC can tend to all your power sports needs from hard parts to riding gear. Bikes, Trikes, and Quads also offers hard-to-find used parts for your vintage dirt bike, ATV, three-wheeler, or snowmobile. Use discount code ATVMX at www.btqllc.com for 10% off of orders of $100 or more. We're grateful to have Bikes, Trikes, and Quads LLC digging deep with us. Thank you, BTQ LLC. We are proud to be partnered with Gripped Gloves. Gripped is an ATV rider-owned and operated brand with the rider in mind and the goal of keeping costs affordable. The Michigan-based family operation recognizes riders' desire to showcase their identity. Owner David Payne's love for eccentric colorways and crazy patterns shows in his product, something not often found in the work of big manufacturers. Here to push stereotypes and limitations, Grip's drive is to produce a glove with cool colors and designs that won't break the bank. With comfort and quality as key motivators, the family affair is constantly working on the next more innovative and improved glove. Get a grip on life, join the Gripped movement, because no one wants a bland glove. Check them out today at grippedgloves.com, that's GRIPT gloves.com, and use discount code DIGGINGDEEP10 to save at checkout. Just like the sport of ATV motocross as a whole, our Digging Deep community is brought together by the love for racing that we all share. Our sport is compiled of many great people, and leading that charge is the Launderville family at Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. This racing-owned family business is a steel and concrete supplier serving the entire United States. Launderville Steel is a full-service steel supplier of new and surplus steel, aluminum, and stainless steel products, headlined by their 4130 chromoly tubing and plate used in the building of chassis for ATVs and UTVs, off-road truck racing, late model dirt and pro tractor pulling series, drag racing, and more. Launderville Steel loves their racing just as much as we do, but don't forget about their concrete division as well. With over 25 years of experience, the concrete division can supply everything you need to complete your next business or personal project. Their central Midwest location enables LSC to easily serve customers across the United States. For a quote, additional info, answers to more of your questions, or to talk a little racing, head over to laundervillesteel.com or give them a call today. We are proud to be partnered with yet another racer-owned company. Thank you, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply. Thanks for listening, and remember to support our partners. Now back to the show. The last thing on the dirt bike topic, and you brought his name up earlier when you were talking about the facility or whatever, but what was your connection to Luke Rensland? Because he ran the Walsh logo racing Supercross and stuff, and he went on, he did really good in Canada. He did all kinds of great things. So I think after he was a fill-in rider for somebody, and I think he podiumed at one Supercross.
He podiumed at the East-West shootout, which is even more incredible.
Yes, you're right.
Right. Luke's a personal friend of mine. I mean, when Tommy sold them the shop, It's Luke and his brother Cody, but Cody is more of he's more of a trainer for Luke.
Okay.
And but Luke, very, very chill dude. We actually got involved with Kenny Day and Skip Norfolk. And
yeah.
whole
Legendary
deal.
names right there
Right.
on the dirt bike side. Yeah.
Right. They had a team called Traders, and it was a guy up northeast that had a supercross team, and Skip was running it, and Kenny Day was running it. It was Traders Kawasaki.
Okay.
And so they got kind of engulfed by the club team.
Oh,
Club MS.
sure. Yeah.
So
Yep.
Trader Club kind of merged.
Okay.
And that's when Luke got off the team because he didn't want to leave Dreamland and go to and live in North Carolina.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Luke went and raced. I believe the story is he went and raced Canada Nationals because he's from like Jersey, but he also has a right down here by me. So we were playing, me, Parker, Bryce. We actually won the first Dreamland Open, which is a volleyball tournament.
Okay.
So it's funny they had a trophy and everything, but we used to go play volleyball there like weekly and just have a good time. I mean, they had a big Fox shoot there and all the best were there. I mean, Reed, Ricky Carmichael, Cincerello, all the big boys were there, and we were able to go over and watch them do the shoot and everything. But
Kenny Day would have worked for Fox at the time, I think, right?
He works for Fox now.
Oh, he works for Fox now because he was with Alpine Star at one point. Okay.
He's with Fox.
Gotcha.
But he was running, right. So he was running the Traders team. He was the manager.
Okay.
And actually the mechanic for, I believe, the guy that actually, it's funny because I think two of the people that work for the Phoenix motorcycle side were actually Traders guys.
Oh, okay.
And I hang with them. But what we did for like the Traders team was we make little things that they needed that they couldn't buy, like catch or things that they dreamt up that they wanted. We would do chassis mods. Like, you can't do a lot to the chassis, but add skid plate mounts or this or that they needed, or catch cans for their overflow. Real nice, clean, classy stuff. And we were just the support system if they needed, because they're right there, So if they need anything down, and we do it on the spot for them. And it was this little things, but they really liked having us kind of outside of the moto game because, Walsh, we're not wheel guys. So, but they knew that we were reputable. So it was good for them to have somebody in their back pocket, and that was us.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. When you brought up Luke's name earlier, I at least wanted to touch on that. Okay, I got a few more questions here. I feel bad that we've kept you so long, so we'll tie this up as fast as possible. Okay, do you have a favorite memory as a racer? Either, I'm thinking maybe it's Birch Creek 03, maybe it's Montreal. Do you have a favorite one that's better than all the rest?
Yeah, I mean the Montreal and I won Anaheim on a split track.
Okay.
CRF versus Corey and Dana and Keith and all the boys. And that was a huge memory because I was by myself, right? I was in California, staying with Dana and racing, and I ended up winning that. And I mean, I was so tight in that moto. I was casing and coming up short, but it was a great memory. But I really can't take anything away from the Montreal was my favorite because it was me going up there in a box truck and in front of 50,000 people. Right. The Anaheim was after the Supercross, so there was nobody there. But the Montreal was in front of 50,000, and man, you felt carrying that checker flag. It was a monumental experience for me. And at that point, I feel like my career was satisfied. I had satisfied my career. Obviously there's been wins and there's been situations where I've done well, but that one particular race was probably my most memorable experience racing.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't think that there's probably anything that gets better than, racing and winning in a big stadium like that. Like I told you in the last conversation, like a gladiator in the Coliseum. That's amazing. So that comes as no surprise. Okay. What about your opinion on this? So, do we see Chad get a 9th title and break Gary Denton's record, whether it's 2022 or beyond? Do you think we're going to see that in your opinion?
That is one question I didn't want you to ask. What if we're going to be just brutally honest,
mm-hmm.
I would say that there is a good chance that Chad Wienen will win another title before he hangs up the boots.
Hey, if there was, if you could go to Vegas and bet on, a title winner for ATV motocross, he would be the odds-on favorite because it's a safe bet. Look at 8 of the last 10 years, the dude has won. Right. Like it's the safe bet. So,
and to see the speed that he's still bringing, I think that it's a very good chance
mm-hmm.
he could possibly win again. And I'm not saying that I don't think Joel has I really wouldn't class. Just to be honest, I would only classify those two as championship contenders.
Right. Yep.
Personally, but
nothing against the other guy, nothing against Joel. This has nothing to do with that. Yeah.
Just because his program is so methodical and his situation is so perfected and his riding is not slowing down, I say there is a good chance that he could win again.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree 100%. I think I've said at the beginning of each one of the last 2 years that he was my pick. And it's because everybody else on the episodes for those preseason shows said that Joel was their pick. And it's like, hey, like, you're going to leave me the safe pick. I'm going to take it. So needed to ask you there. Okay. Outside of those top two, give us a rider to watch in 2022. You work with a number of them. Does anybody come to mind? Maybe like an off the radar guy, sleeper pick for Digging Deep ATVMX Fantasy? Do you have any rider to watch for this upcoming season that comes to mind?
Yeah, I do. My heart's kind of being pulled in the Max Lindquist way, because Max has done so much at a young age. I feel like he only can get better. So, and what we saw out of him last year and with the people he surrounds himself with,
mm-hmm.
I really feel like Max is going to be one to really watch going forward in these next couple of years or this next year. That would be, we saw a lot out of Wesley Wolf last year.
Mm-hmm.
When he was running, I feel like if that program was tuned, when I say program, I just mean program in general, as far as the entire package was tuned, I feel like Wesley Wolf could shine at some races.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to say that Max Lindquist would be the guy in the pro ranks. And now if we're talking, the pro-am guys, I don't know. I'm not, as close with up and coming riders as I had been previously.
Yep.
But, obviously you have Zach Decker, who I think is going to be transitioning
to pro class. Yep.
Right. And I don't know, I do know some of the affiliates on that team. But like that would kind of be like my opinion on the pro class. I mean, I feel like Jeffrey Estrelli had a very good season last year, but I don't know. I feel like Max I kind of feel like Max is gonna, obviously Bryce Ford is a superstar,
mm-hmm.
As well. But what we saw out of Max, if he could stay healthy, when I say that, it kind of sounds weird because, I don't look at him as a person that crashes.
No,
but
no.
He did have an injury last year. So if he stays healthy and he trains, I think he's going to be a podium contender weekly.
Mm-hmm. No, I think so too. I think that I kind of expected you to probably say Max there. I think that Max, I mean, that whole grouping of those guys, and we spent the whole summer talking about the fantasy game and how the hell are you supposed to pick between Jeffrey and Max and Janusa and, and Bryce and Wesley, all these guys, like, how do you pick? But Max, of them all, I think as we sit here right now, has the highest upside. Like, he could take the biggest leap forward this season. And if he does, he could be a podium guy. He could be the podium favorite of, that grouping every weekend. If it goes that way.
Let me touch on this as a fan, a race, as an enthusiast.
Mm-hmm.
No one has replaced Thomas Brown.
Right. Yep.
The Thomas Brown position was not replaced, which I really thought that, Bryce would, I was thinking that Bryce would dominate that third place position, in which he rightfully did with a lot of heart, pull that third place position out. But there wasn't a dominant third place guy, which you saw in the past with Thomas. It was more of a battle, which was great for the racing.
Yes.
But I didn't third place guy like I did with Thomas.
No, you're exactly right. We didn't see, we all kind of speculated who's going to be the guy to step up and take, Thomas's role on. And we did never see that. Now, it was awesome for us as fans to see a battle every weekend. And I think that what you saw is every one of those guys take a step forward, and every one of those guys, like sharks sniffing blood in the water, they all, wanted to be that third place guy, and they just kept pushing each other, but none of them were able to take, that step. Obviously, at the end of the year, Bryce ended up being the third guy, and credit to him that he, he's the one that topped everybody else. But we'll see if anybody can take that step and kind of fill Thomas's role as the kind of mainstay on the podium. But man, Max could very well be that guy. I know that there's guys like, Bryce, there's guys like longer stay guys like Janusa and Jeffrey that are going to have something to say about that. That's what makes that part so fun, is it's like, man, who the hell are you supposed to pick on any given weekend?
And I think I do want to touch on it. I think that all of those riders stepped up and they all became a Brown, maybe not on Brown's level, but they all elevated and found themselves fighting for that podium spot. But I do feel like there's going to be a breakout third place guy eventually with, let me say that I'm proud of Bryce and his program. They got an awesome program, and Bryce came over to the Walsh Race Craft side 21, and I was very proud to be on, a part of Bryce's program, because I do believe strongly that he could really do damage in the future, being young and like I talked about with Max Lindquist, and not taking anything away from Jeffrey or Nick, but those are seasoned pros, where you're seeing these young guns really trying to make a name for themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. It's going to be fun to watch how it all plays out. And I think that, you're just, I don't know about you, but I'm getting stoked just talking about it right now. So as the season gets a little bit closer, that's obviously exciting to speculate about. Can't wait to see how that's all going to go down. Okay. We've got just a couple more questions here as we finish this thing up. So we covered, how the hybrid pro class era came to an end, and, how that whole deal was. It's an iconic time period in ATV racing. And we talked about the role that you guys kind of played in that that whole thing. So what is your reaction to all the people who are calling for a hybrid pro class once again here in 2022? As we and we've touched on some of these topics a little bit throughout here, but what is your reaction when people bring that up? Because you're kind of the hybrid, ATV company that does a lot of that stuff to this day. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, my true opinion is that we need a development class. We need a developmental class with limited restrictions.
Okay.
For the growth and of the ATV, not the racing, or yes, the racing, but
for the sport as a whole is what you're saying.
Does an Indy car, is it a Chevette? No, it's been developed. They all have 4 tires, but it's been developed with R&D and changes, and all these sports are, and it's not that ATV is not moving forward, but I think that if you had a developmental class, it could really push the limits. Like we talked about, did or did not Suzuki use the DRZ that we built to help their ATV program? Well, I don't know that answer. Probably nobody, but there are some people that know. I've heard things, but just say they did. What happens if we got the sport excited again? The sport got excited for these new vehicles, and we had some people, 2 or 3 or 4 aftermarket companies, kind of pushing the development of and maybe some out of the box stuff. I'm not just talking about different motors, but maybe different suspension systems, stuff that we could now that we have the knowledge to do and the funding to do, maybe we could develop stuff that was much better than what we're currently riding. And maybe not only for just US racing, but how about for the European market and stuff. And I think that we're really being held to a strict, I'm not really a rules person, but I do believe in rules, but I do believe in freedom too. And freedom, the freedom to develop is gone. We don't have that anymore. So I feel like we need a class, and not so much a pro-am class that allows hybrids or an A class, but an actual developmental class that people could run. Hey, look, we're not going to have a stock chassis in this class. We're going to, or maybe we would, but maybe we'd have, but it has to be some sort of a hybrid class where it's cool to race, or it's pushed your influence to race a hybrid where these people, because look, I'm not going to be here forever. Somebody, maybe there's another Mike Walsh out there that wants to make things and, push the window of products for these ATVs, but they're bored because they can't build anything cool. Right. So I think that we need one, but then again, we just talked about, we think that we need a production class, which I do think we need a production class. So I think that there's a lot of classes that aren't being touched on that do need to be utilized, and not for a year or two, but we need to make these concrete classes.
Stick with it. Yeah, exactly. That's one of my biggest gripes of all. I thought that we were going to see some of this maybe in 2020 when they, rolled out the pro mod class. And I thought that we were maybe going to see guys like, because I know that there's people out there that were lobbying to have hybrids in the pro class. There's been a number of them for years, and everybody, and on both sides of the argument, there are people that are steadfast in the way that they feel. And I totally understand that. Because we talked ourselves blue in the face about this, just a little bit ago. But I thought that we were going to see, just use Joel as an example, just because, he was, the number one guy at the time or whatever, the defending champ. But I thought we might see Joel ride, his TRX on Saturdays, and then in pro mod on Sunday, they roll him out on a hybrid, and you're able to see what he's capable of on a hybrid. I truly, when I first heard about the pro mod class, I thought that that's what we might see didn't end up happening that way. But I totally understand what you're saying. I mean, that's kind of the concept that you touched on there. So,
well, and plus these classes haven't been prestigious classes,
right?
You know, they're a good class, but they're not looked at as. And that's like, we go back to the pro production class and the pro class back in the day when, you know, these classes were, you had the prestigious class, which was the pro class, and then you had the pro production, which was not as prestigious, but it was growing, but it was also prestigious. Where you have that right now with another class.
Exactly. No, I know exactly what you mean. Yep. Because at the time, even though it was the little brother to the pro class, it was also prestigious because everybody knew the factories were coming. So that's there what made it.
Push. Tim Farr was campaigning. Doug Gus was campaigning.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, Mike. Well, last one as we wrap this awesome conversation up. So you and everyone know, you know, at this point, not only is the show, we've been talking about this throughout here, but not only is the show, but personally, I am also, going to be Team Blue Crew here for 2022. And as a longtime Walsh rider myself, obviously I'm going to be, running Walsh products on my Yamahas. So I guess in a broad sense, do you have any insight or words of advice as I start the building process, on my Yamahas here? You touched on it earlier, and that's one thing I wanted to touch on while I had you was the LTR geometry and the Yamaha geometry thing, because I believe, and you kind of touched on it earlier, but I'm pretty sure that Joel is the one that kind of opened that door when he moved over to the Yamaha. He didn't necessarily, and he told us that he didn't necessarily love the way the Yamaha geometry felt. And then you guys, mocked up the LTR stuff and how that felt. And he really liked it, he said. So I guess, tell me like my starting point, like anything you would suggest in a broad sense on the Yamaha side. And then like, what do you feel about the Yamaha geometry versus the LTR geometry? Because in my mind, as a guy who's ran LTR stuff for the longest time on my Hondas, I was kind of assuming that like, that's probably the avenue I want to go with my Walsh stuff, on the Yamaha. So tell me about that.
All right. That's a good question. I talked to Eller about this, in the beginning of the Joel program. And I said, hey, can Joel win on the Yamaha stuff? I said, yeah, I think he could, I mean, we didn't know what Joel was going to do on the Yamaha, but the Yamaha stuff is not bad. And the reason I say this is because Chad won multiple championships on the Yamaha stuff.
Right.
We had a bit of geometry change, but it was Yamaha stuff and it worked good. It was competitive with Joel on his Honda with the Suzuki spindles. We were there. Now Chad's a big guy. He can move his weight. He's got good weight distribution. He's, but I think what's happening here is, so somebody that buys Walsh stuff or is looking to get into they want the best stuff. So what's happening here is everybody is going Suzuki because clearly it is a better front end than the Yamaha.
Well, you're a guy who absolutely adored and adores the Suzuki everything, the Suzuki geometry. Yeah. And the reason why I asked that question is because, like I said, I'm used to the Suzuki feel on my Hondas. So if I can bring that to my Yamaha, hopefully it's like an easier transition, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The Suzuki spindle is clearly a better setup than the Yamaha. I mean, there's no argument. Does the Yamaha work good in some situations? For sure, it does. But most of my clients are all running Suzuki.
So there's been this major change for you in the last like year or whatever of having to produce Suzuki Yamaha stuff. Is that true?
Well, no, I want to touch on that.
Okay.
Chad developed the Suzuki front end first.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Right. Yes. And we developed that a few years ago at his track.
Okay.
In Florida, in Daytona. And we did all the testing, me and Chad personally, and he liked the Yamaha stuff, but he liked the way the Suzuki turned better
Okay.
than, and it did a couple other things better than the Yamaha. So we decided we would run. And it's funny, the first year we ran the Suzuki stuff, we didn't win.
Oh,
and
shoot. Okay.
That's something I remember, but Chad never second guessed his decision on his front end.
Okay.
Right. So and then moving forward, when we started working with Joel and the boys, Joel didn't like the Yamaha front end nearly as much as his Honda. So, and with it was Honda was LTR.
Yep.
So we developed a new front end for Joel. And that's where the JH1 comes from. It's a different geometry than what Chad runs, but it was more specifically tailored towards Joel's size.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So it's not necessarily like an Elka Walsh thing. It's a size rider thing.
Yeah. Well, right. So you're right. And then Elka runs a specific link that we made. It was a combination of a couple links.
Yep.
That we kind of started having developed with Casey.
Okay.
So and that's a good setup too. But yeah, Elka's done a lot of work with Joel, and obviously their stuff's working real good. You can't say, so there's a couple different combinations out there for those of you that want to build, and some of the parts are only available through Weenan Motorsports.
Okay.
So I have a contract with Weenan that states that developed parts for Chad will only be available through Chad for 1 year.
Okay.
And then after that they become public parts.
Okay.
So that's a great question, and that's something that we came up with for the development of the Yamaha.
Awesome. Yeah, these are all questions that I'm so glad that I'm asking, because this is a learning process for me with the Yamaha, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of people that have went through or are going through the same thing. So I'm glad that we're able to touch on some of this tech stuff before we let you go. So obviously, I'm going to need to get arms and swing arms, stem, the seat pin kit, all that little stuff. What about subframes? So obviously you make a subframe. Is that something that everybody's running? Like, is it like with the Honda? So I was never a lowered, bike guy, but I ran the adjustable subframe and the lower, I could lower that. Yeah. So what do people do on the Yamaha as far as the subframes go? It's
kind of like your Honda setup, but it's fixed.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's a lower subframe than the stock subframe, but it's not adjustable.
Gotcha. Well, that the adjustable part was not something I needed, because I put it on the lowest setting and left.
Right.
So
that's what the Yamaha will be, and it's a subframe that's been around forever that we've had, and everybody loves it. Now I want to touch on the swing arm. For those of you guys who want to save money, you can run what Chad ran and Joel ran on their production bikes, was our chain guide kit with the stock swing arm, and then you could also add our link. So the stock swing arm and the Walsh swing arm are the same geometry, just the stock swing arm's aluminum and the Walsh one's chromoly, so it flexes better and takes a bigger beating than a stock swing arm. But the stock swing arm will get you in the ballpark, and then after, if you want to upgrade to the chromoly swing arm, you can do that. And that's kind of what's nice about Yamaha.
Yeah, so it crosses over perfectly, so you wouldn't have to do that on a step one basis. That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. So what else, is there any other products you want to touch on? Like I said, some of the stuff is new to me as far as the motor stuff goes. So you have that oil tank, right? That everybody runs. Tell me about that.
Well, everybody doesn't run the oil tank, but everybody does run a version of a catch can.
Okay.
So, I think this 38 Motorsports have come out with a tiny catch can that they're using. Chad has a catch can that's based off the LTR. I developed the aluminum catch can that's on the side of the engine. They're all really doing the same thing. I know a lot of the cross country guys use mine because it's bigger volume, and you lose, and it literally works better. But say, hey, if you're motoing, you're going 30 minutes. So you know, and you're doing more maintenance, where these cross country guys are doing, if they're catching a lot of blow by halfway through, say they suck water or something, they're not going to push oil on our catch can. It's a better working catch can. But so if you're going to go with the LTR stuff, that creates a couple little, one of my buddies, Kevin Kern, from Decker's facility, he's pointed out that, you know, if you go with the Suzuki front end, you got to run Suzuki wheels, and then you have Yamaha hubs in the back. So if you want to get champion a box or something from DWT, now you can't. So we're in the process of, I'm not saying we are making front hubs, but we are in the process of kind of trying to remedy that situation where, I mean, obviously Rocket does a lot of hub manufacturing and stuff, but making a Yamaha bolt pattern for Suzuki spindle. That way Yamaha wheels with the Suzuki spindle, or you have to convert to Suzuki rear hubs and run Suzuki wheels. Now for you running a Honda, that'd probably be the thing to do. Throw some Lone Star rear hubs on it. They work very well. And then just run Honda wheels because you have Honda wheels. That's one thing that you need to think about. And then the other thing is, if you run a Suzuki spindles, you got to run our drop down steering arm. Okay. You can't run a factory steering arm.
Right. I've seen those on the bikes, and I've wondered to myself about those.
Yeah. So with those, you're going to reduce bump steer, and everything's going to work a lot better. Okay. So Cole has his own specific, and Chad has his own specific. Okay. They're very geometry, but they're tailored to their front ends.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad that I didn't let you get out of here without touching on some of that stuff, because even just in that, you know, this little snippet, I feel like I learned so much. So I can't wait to build these things. I can't wait to get out there and show off my, you know, my Yamaha YFZ 450R fully equipped with Walsh stuff. And honestly, again, like, I'm learning so much. I'm just so grateful to have you in my corner. Obviously, you know, all your development with Chad, now with Joel, it's like, you know, you have all the suspension packages now that you've done all this development with. So that's awesome for guys like me who, you know, are maybe a little late to the party on the Yamaha thing, but you guys already got it all figured out. So that's advantage me, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, and, you know, with other, you know, you run the Elka setup, works great. Run the Fox setup, works great. You know, a lot of these shock manufacturers, and that's the thing. Okay. So let's not play games. The Yamaha is turning into the 250R.
It is. Yep.
You know, so I think the development of the Yamaha is really going to skyrocket and peak here in the next few years, because you have all these companies just making sweet shocks, you know, really nice stuff for the Yamaha. And that's going to push the Yamaha to places that it hasn't been before.
Absolutely. Everybody's focused on the same machine. So that's advantage us. Well, on that note, pal, that's going to do it for our conversation with you. I can't thank you enough for everything, Mike. I hope that this has been as much fun for you, reliving all these old stories and all this stuff, all the ATV racing history. So I hope this has been as much fun for you as it was for me. Man, there's nothing that you haven't been a part of. So it's truly been an honor to spend all this time with you, to go over all this stuff. You're a legend, a supporter of mine, like we just went over, a supporter of so many of our listeners. And pal, I'm just grateful to call you a friend. I can't thank you enough for joining Digging Deep. This has been an absolute pleasure. And I love telling the story, the history of ATV motocross, and person by person, we're doing that. You know, till this point, it took till episode, 69 and 70 for us to tell your story, but I feel like we filled a huge gap in the history of the sport. And I'm proud to have done that.
Yeah, I loved chatting and sharing the memories, and heck, you brought up memories that I forgot, you know, so it's been awesome. And, hopefully, in another 60 or 70 episodes, maybe we could talk about some more stuff and keep the ball rolling. But I had a blast, and I know all my friends, Shane Dog Hit and all the guys that you've had on, they really, really, I feel like they need this. Look, hey, Gary got into Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Yep. Is he going to be one? I don't think so. I think that they're going to be more ATV, and I hope there is. But I know that we're all having a blast, and what you're doing is definitely working. So keep it up.
I think that we're dragging a lot of people back into the sport that thought that they were done, right? We get the messages every day of people saying, that we're dragging them back in, and the numbers don't lie. Like, there's a lot of people out there that aren't at the races or aren't, maybe around or haven't been around ATV racing for the last number of years. But I just told you it took 3 days for 100,000 people to download your episode. So there's a lot of people out there enjoying what we're doing, and I'm pumped on that. I know the sport's benefiting from it. And again, like I told you last time, none of this would be going on without awesome guests like yourself. So, and also it's not going to take 69 or 70 episodes, because I can't wait to do this again. Maybe next time we can get you back on to talk some more, current ATV racing, or whatever. How does that sound? Because that sounds like a blast to me.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I'm mad that Casey gets all the publicity. I see. No, great. I love it. And hopefully I'll get back to the track a little bit more this next year. I won't be at every race, but I do want to stay a big part of the ATV racing, because that's who I am. So,
well, Mike, I can't thank you enough. That sounds like a blast to me. We'll look forward to getting you back on and talking some more current stuff, because not many people are more plugged in than you. So we look forward to that. But until then, pal, thanks so much for being such an awesome guest here on the podcast. It's been an honor. It truly has.
All right, Cody. Wow, looking forward to it. Let's get that Yamaha running.
Yeah, I can't wait. That's a wrap with another guy who you couldn't tell the story of ATV racing's history without Mike Walsh right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Thanks again to DP Brakes. Visit www.dp-brakes.com to join myself, Joel Hetrick, Walker Fowler, and so many others on the most high-performing and durable brakes on the market. And Mike, one more time, until next time, thanks for being such an awesome guest and so gracious with your time. This has been awesome.
Bye-bye, Cody. We'll see you next time.
You're the man. Thank you, sir. That's Mike Walsh right here on the Digging Deep ATVMX podcast. Man, with so many of these conversations, I'm extremely proud to bring them to our listeners, other diehard ATV racing enthusiasts like myself, and this one is no different. But it's going to be very hard to top this epic conversation with an absolutely incredible dude. Major thanks to tonight's guest, Mr. Mike Walsh. Thanks to producer Dallas Jansen, my brother, for all his hard work. Thanks to Brooke and AMA official Harv Whipple. Thanks to all of our donors. You know who you are. We appreciate you so much. Thanks to all of our partners, CST Tires, shop.csttires.com, Yamaha, thanks to Blue Crew, Valvoline, Ssi Decals, DID Racing Chain, Namura Technologies, Bronco ATV and UTV Components, Impact Solutions, Binky's Forever ATC Museum, Launderville Steel Enterprises and Concrete Supply, the financial advice of the Haymauer Financial Group, Forworks Carbon, DP Brakes, Gripped Gloves, Factory 43, Bike Strikes and Quads LLC, Integrated Financial Concepts, and their Safe to Race and Safe to Ride insurance programs. Manscaped got 20% off and free shipping with code DiggingDeep20 at manscaped.com. And again, thanks to Binky's Forever ATC Museum. We haven't completely hammered out their official ad as of this recording, but you should hear that on next week's episode, so stay tuned for that. Support the brands that support our show, and don't forget to use those codes to save. Find it all on our website, and be sure to click those Rocky Mountain ATVMC and Amazon banners for all your gear and parts needs, everyday needs, and to help us out. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. Need more gift ideas? Our show merchandise, including Digging Deep shirts and hoodies, our Quad Guys Get Hot Chicks shirts and hoodies, back-to-back national champ merch, and more, are all available today at shop.diggingdeepatvmx.com. If you're looking for another easy way to help support us, visit our website and click the Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon buttons. This allows you to set up a one-time or monthly contribution to support our efforts. Keep sending your questions, stories, and topics in to be featured on an upcoming episode. Don't hesitate to call into our voicemail line with those so we can play them on the show, and that number is 920-569-3519. Follow the show on social media, Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast, and myself, Cody Jansen, for additional content, coverage, and more fun stuff throughout the off-season here. As for the podcast, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Wherever you find podcasts, you'll find the Digging Deep ATVMX Podcast. All episodes, additional podcast providers, sponsor links, and discount codes, our show merchandise, fantasy info, and more can all be found on our website, diggingdeepatvmx.com, so check that out today. Be a friend, tell a friend, please download, subscribe, rate, review, and share. And with that, For Mike Walsh, Brooke Catherine, Dallas Jansen, and I'm your host, Cody Jansen. Thanks for listening to the #1 podcast in ATV racing, 3 million downloads and counting. Until next time, thanks for joining us in Digging Deep with the Stars of ATV Motocross. See you next week. Things are crashing and burning here at the Digging Deep podcast, much like the Titanic.
Those guys were hauling ass, for real.
I remember watching Doug Gus, I don't know who it was, Steel City, running the same times Friday afternoon as James Stewart was on Sunday back then. It was mental. I've never seen quads go that fast.
Quad leaders are freaking gnarly.